Chapter 292. Wheel rotating intense dragon energy. Who knew that there would be such a miraculous idea before the cloud desolate era? Moments later, Zhong Shou closed the book. Within his soul ocean, he was swiftly calculating. Those light spots were also continuously flashing. The great sky-changing dark art was to divide his soul into yin and yang when he was in a meditative state. Both yin and yang were opposed to each other, and both were dependent on each other. Then, he would meditate and calculate in an orderly manner. Not only could his soul power cultivation speed increase greatly. When he was thinking and comprehending, it had a miraculous effect. Within his palm, a ball of blue and red energy appeared, spinning in a spiral. However, it was a little different from before. At a glance, this ball of energy was a lot more harmonious, and there were not as many conflicting areas as before. When Zhong Shou controlled it, it slowly gave off a feeling of being able to do as he pleased. Fast and slow according to his heart, this world-shocking true energy power would weaken and increase according to his thoughts. His senior brother was indeed a Saint Realm expert. His eyes were really sharp. In just one night, he had seen through all the weaknesses of this world-shocking spiritual art. Naturally, the future of this cultivation method was also clear in his heart. The martial path secret manuals that he left were all things that could help him make up for his weaknesses, absorbing the essence and merging it into the world-shocking spiritual art. The body chakra stage of this cultivation method was close to perfection. As for the earth chakra and heaven chakra stages of cultivation, he had a clear idea in his heart. However, this Zhang Shengdao style was something that Zhong Shou had experienced. As expected, it was like the rumors. To the direct disciples of the sect, it was a method of letting them grow. Like how a goshawk would push a young eagle out of its nest, forcing it to fly in the snow. The mother wolf would toss her child and leave alone, allowing the young wolf to hunt alone. Zhang Shengdao's method was similar. With Wei Su's Saint Realm cultivation, he could have easily perfected this world-shocking spiritual art. However, he didn't choose such a method. Instead, he left these martial path secret manuals that could be helpful for him to comprehend and deduce on his own. What was even more outrageous was that after taking him in as a direct disciple, he threw him aside and did not care about him at all. If he didn't know that Zhao Yanran and Xian Yunlan, the direct disciples of the Seven Spirit sect and the Qinyin school, were treated like this, he wouldn't have been able to accept it. He simply thought that Zhang Shengdao was burning the bridge after crossing it. Others would be able to borrow the strength of their elders and obtain countless benefits as soon as they joined the sect, allowing their cultivation to rise rapidly. However, after he joined the sect, he still had to rely on his own strength and self-reliance. I've really met the wrong person. I regret it so much. At that time, if he had listened to Lei Dong's words and entered Wujua Villa, how would he have ended up in such a tragic state? However, this great sky-changing meditation technique is not bad. Zhong Shou shook his head as he deduced. After he had a rough idea of what to do, he stopped meditating. Then, with the help of the illusory heart mirror, he formed all sorts of illusions in his mind. This time, he chose dozens of martial ancestor realm experts as his opponent. He wanted to test the world-shaking true energy that he had perfected and sublimated once again. Pretty much using a killing intent, he crazily massacred these opponents within the illusionary realm. Coincidentally, Xian Yunlan's zither music sounded out from outside the door. A soul-calming spiritual tune caused his mind to once again enter a selfless state. His spiritual sense was deep, and when he regained consciousness, it was already 2 hours later. Within the illusionary realm in his mind, not a single opponent died. At most, they were heavily injured and lost the ability to fight. Zhong Shou couldn't help but purse his lips as he kept the illusory heart mirror. The soul-calming spiritual tune of the zither music sect was indeed a music element technique. Be it helping one to comprehend or meditate, it had shocking effects. However, the only bad thing was that after listening to the tune for a long time, one's personality would become terrifyingly calm and their killing intent would disappear. For example, just now, with his personality, after the zither music sounded out within the illusionary realm, he wasn't willing to attack viciously. It was like he was a totally different person. Naturally, one couldn't exclude the possibility that Xian Yunlan was purposely using her zither music to subtly influence his personality, trying to persuade him to be kind. Luckily, this girl was born in Tsangxingdao. With her personality, even those righteous path sects wouldn't be able to survive. Changing one's personality was directly attacking the foundations of the human heart. It was the biggest taboo amongst martial cultivators and spirit masters. Luckily, Xian Yunlan met him. If it wasn't because they were from the same sect and he needed to borrow her zither music to cultivate and his sword heart was clear, he wouldn't have been bewitched by her. With what Xian Yunlan did, it wouldn't be too much for him to kill her with one sword. Just now in the illusionary realm, although he didn't kill anyone, some of the intricacies of the rotating dragon energy had been merged into his world-shocking spiritual art. Out of those tens of opponents, none of them died. This also meant that his control of the spiral energy had reached an exquisite level. Only by using his heart could he conserve strength. If it was him in the past, it would be tough for him to show mercy. I have more or less deduced this cultivation method. I only need a month to perfect a few details, and then I can step into the martial ancestor realm. He suddenly took out a 5-layer purple pagoda, casually reaching out, and 2 spiritual veins were sucked into his body. Different from last time when his flesh and blood exploded, this time merging with the spiritual veins was really calm. He easily absorbed the 2 fire spiritual veins into his internal chakra meridians. His body was strong, his foundations were stable, his heart cultivation method was perfect. Naturally, this merging of the earth veins was done naturally, there was no shock and no danger. Following which he could clearly feel that his heart, liver, spleen, lungs, kidneys, 5 organs were strengthening at a shocking rate. The vital energy and essence energy that was spitting out from his body was at least 3 times stronger than before. Zhong Shou suddenly took out a spiritual sword, slicing a wound on his fingertip. In just a moment it was totally healed. Only a shallow white mark was left. This was a sign that the life essence energy in his body had greatly increased. In the future, as long as it wasn't a life-threatening injury, some small injuries could be healed in just a moment. Zhong Shou suddenly clenched his fist, and the grade 2 spiritual weapon in his hand instantly broke into pieces. On his right arm, one could see 6 small spiritual veins, like a flood dragon coiling around and providing huge amounts of spiritual energy. 300,000 kilograms. A martial ancestor who cultivated to the 5th meridian only had so much strength. I have 6 earth veins in my body. In terms of energy meridians, I should be even better. Zhong Shou's lips curled up, revealing a joyful expression. Misfortune and fortune were interdependent. This dual meridian body made it hard for him to advance in the past. However, the moment he broke through the shackles, he immediately showed his shocking ability. Once he completely merged with the 18 earth veins, he might be able to use his peak Xuanwu martial ancestor strength to go up against ascended experts. He wouldn't be much weaker than those geniuses who comprehended spirit and martial arts as one. His mind swept the small heaven and earth bag. There was only one martial path secret manual left. Chill Flame Swift Image Technique, Cloud Desolate Era, Grade 7 Legendary Technique. Zhong Shou's brows instantly rose. Within the tens of books left by Wei Su, apart from the 2 Insight Mysterious Lightning Body Training Art and the Great Sky Changing Meditation Technique, only this one was the most precious. Legendary grade, not much weaker than his 6-god defensive knife technique. Taking it out from the heaven and earth bag, Zhong Shou flipped it open and was delighted. This wasn't a cultivation technique, fist technique, or sword technique, but a teleportation technique that could allow one to travel 1,000 miles. It could also use the water and fire true chi to change and clash, making one's body unpredictable. However, the person who cultivated it had to be a dual cultivator. Not only did the true chi need to have the water and fire merging nature, but the soul ocean also needed to form fire and water true spiritual talismans. What surprised him the most was that this chill flame swift image technique didn't even need to be changed. With a dual meridian body, the spiral energy could directly cultivate it. In his last life, he focused on the sword path, but he wasn't good at movement techniques and galloping technique. He was the weakest out of the 7 emperors, based on what the Shadow Emperor who died under his 6-god defensive knife technique said. If he fought with others, he would either live or die. It was okay if he could win, but if he lost, he wouldn't be able to escape even if he wanted to. Luckily, before he got the Book of Ian Extreme Life, he had gone through 9,747 battles and didn't lose a single one. Naturally, he didn't need to consider escaping. However, it would be a lie to say that he wasn't envious of those people who could travel 1,000 miles. If his body was fast, his sword speed would be much faster too. However, he hadn't been able to find a suitable cultivation method. Looking at page by page, Zhong Shou's body was also revolving according to the Heart Sutra recorded in the secret manual. Suddenly, numerous illusions appeared around his body. Just as he was slowly immersed in it, a piece of paper floated down from the chill flame swift image technique. Zhong Shou was slightly startled as he picked it up, only to see that on it were the words Chill Flame Dragon Centipede. With just one look, Zhong Shou recognized that it was Wei Su's handwriting. The words were like the person, gentle and reserved, but also filled with a scorching hot intent like it was going to burn one. Chill Flame Dragon Centipede? Isn't this a grade 9 beast that grows under the cloud ocean? Legend has it that it has the bloodline of the dragon race and is born with grade 7 strength. Once it lives for over 10,000 years, it can step into the god-beast category. Why did Senior Brother purposely leave this note in the secret manual? He didn't understand. Zhong Shou stopped comprehending the chill flame swift image technique, slowly entering deep thought. Just looking at the chill flame words, he knew that it wasn't left by Wei Su in the past. How could there be so many coincidences in this world? The note he left wasn't for no reason. Although he had never seen this chill flame dragon centipede before, he heard that this beast was good at using cold power and could control flames. Its combat strength was several times that of same grade beast. His world-shocking spiritual art definitely had a huge connection with this beast. Who knows, in the future, the perfection of this cultivation method would depend on these grade 9 beasts. However, it was still too early to talk about this matter. Not to mention an adult grade 9 beast, even a baby grade 7 beast was something he couldn't win against. Zhong Shou calmed himself down, once again holding the secret manual in his hands, calmly studying it. However, this time, after looking at tens of lines, he felt his left arm tremble slightly. Zhong Shou was instantly delighted, knowing that Little Gold had leveled up once more. Chapter 293. West of Donglin Cloud Continent, roughly 700 miles away from Rainbow City. In the depths of the cloud ocean, many giant cloud whales were rolling about and playing. Their bodies were all huge, the smallest one was 1,000 feet long. Pretty much every turn, every movement would cause the cloud mist to rumble and the air to shake. Not far away from these cloud whales, there was an extremely majestic giant ship that was several times bigger than the body of the cloud whale. This cloud ship was 5,000 feet long. It was 300 feet tall, a full 30 floors. At the windows on the left and right were many exquisite ballista cannons. On the bowstrings were many giant arrows that were ready to be fired at any moment. At this moment, within a hall of the seven-toothed giant ship, a silver-haired middle-aged man suddenly smacked the table at the side. It caused the table made of expensive red sandalwood to instantly shatter into dust. Rage flashed in his eyes, his expression dark and cold as he stared at a half-kneeling red-robed person in front of him. "Say what you said just now one more time." At this moment, if Zhong Shou was here, he would be able to recognize that this person was Lin Ji, whom he had met a day ago. As for the people in the palace hall, they all possessed extraordinary statuses. At the top was the West Ocean Taoyuan City Lord Yu Guanyun. Sitting on the left and right of this person was Yunxia Mountain's demon King Feng Nu and Blazing Flame Mountain's demon King Xiongba. Although they sat at the sides, they were slanted towards the top, similarly sitting high on the throne. The faces of the two of them were also cold and serious. The entire hall was filled with a suppressive aura. 3 days ago, I followed Renbua to meet the Gantian Mountain City Lord. Just as I was about to order Gantian Mountain to give up half a province of land, that Zhong Shou suddenly acted up and ordered people to strip off our clothes and throw us out of Rainbow City. I tried my best to resist but was captured by Zhong Yuan. After being humiliated in front of everyone, I was hung outside the city. If it wasn't for the people receiving me saving me, I wouldn't have been able to return. Lin Ji's face was green and red, filled with wounds. His expression was one of shame and anger. He gritted his teeth and spoke as if he wanted to skin Zhong Shou alive. However, in front of Yu Guanyun and the other two monster kings, he didn't dare to add any details. However, his words were filled with the intent to sow discord. These filthy and shameful things shouldn't be said. They're dirtying the ears of the king. However, at that time I was the envoy of Taoyuan City. I was the face of Taoyuan City. However, they were humiliated by Gantian Mountain people. Those people don't even place our Taoyuan City in their eyes. Yu Guanyun's expression was indeed dark and uncertain. The fury in his eyes almost seeped out. In the end, he clenched his teeth and laughed coldly. "Zhong Shou, you've got guts. I gave you face, but you didn't want it." His personality was the same as that damn father of his, unmoved by force or persuasion. Unfortunately, this kid didn't have half of Zhong Weiron's ability. Why don't you think about whether you have the right to be arrogant? Looking at the haggard-looking Lin Ji, Yu Guanyun was first furious, but then his expression calmed down. "Useless thing. Scram out and find a spirit master to heal you." Lin Ji was instantly delighted, but he didn't dare to show it on his face. He bowed once more and hurried out of the door. Yu Guanyun took in a deep breath and calmed himself down. He turned around and asked the two people who were silently watching, "Brother Feng, Brother Xiong, what do the two of you think?" That Feng Nu was around 40. His body was tall and lean, similar to Feng Yu. When he heard that, his eyelids rose up and he scoffed coldly. "My son died in the hands of Purple Lightning Spear Zhong Yuan. Unless Gantian Mountain is willing to hand over Zhong Yuan and let me slice him into pieces. If not, my Yunxia Mountain will fight to the death with them." Xiongba also smiled. To ask someone to hand over half a province of land with just empty words, even we wouldn't agree to that. No wonder they aren't willing. Coincidentally, Zhong Yuan used 3,000 cavalry to crush the 400,000 alliance army of Blazing Flame Mountain and Brother Feng at Ruohai Strait. That Zhong Shou wouldn't agree. This time Brother Yu is asking for humiliation. Yu Guanyun wasn't annoyed, slightly nodding his head. "I was wrong this time. I wanted to use peaceful means before using force, but who knew that Zhong Shou would be so rude? It seems like only by suppressing the arrogance of this Zhong Shou and Gantian Mountain City can we talk about other things. That's the theory." Xiongba's brows rose up in rage, laughing out loud, filled with arrogance. "Based on what I know, there aren't many beast crystals in the treasury of Gantian Mountain. As long as we make them return empty-handed, we can dry up their treasury. Even if that Zong Shou earned a huge sum last time, taking out beast crystals and mind stones to support Gantian Mountain and calm down the anger of the masses. But it can't stop the subordinate cities from being disloyal. Zong Weiron's 10 years of hard work can collapse in a night. As he said that, Xiongba's tone changed. Although he still had a smile on his face, his eyes were filled with coldness that couldn't be melted. However, the two of you shouldn't underestimate this kid. He might not be able to cultivate. Looking at his ability to defend against strong enemies and remove evil from within, he is a really smart person. You and I both know what kind of person Zong Shi is. Ling Feikong has fought with you and me several times. Although he lost more than he won, he is a top person in Donglin Cloud Continent. Zhong Ming, Zhong Hao, and Zhong Xuan aren't people that normal people can compare to. However, they were either killed or captured by Zhong Shou in a night. All of them were wiped out. Even Sky Fox Zhong Bo Zhongzheng was forced to live in seclusion. That person's ability is really amazing. Feng Nu and Yu Guanyun in the hall were silent and solemn. Although they didn't speak, it was obvious that they agreed with Xiongba's words. Feng Nu nodded slightly. That day there were too many rumors about what happened in Gantian Mountain City, and it was hard to differentiate whether it was real or fake. The eyes and ears of our 3 cities in Gantian Mountain were all wiped out. That is amazing. Moreover, the numerous decrees after he succeeded were all great strategies. If he persevered, he would be able to greatly increase Gantian Mountain's power. This kid might really be like the rumors, unable to cultivate. However, if we give him a year or 2, he might be able to truly control Gantian Mountain and make all the people in Gantian Mountain bow their heads and be willing to serve him. However, because we know his ability, the 3 of us decided to work together. His tone changed as he said respectfully, no matter how smart that Zhong Shou is, his ability under the cloud ocean can't be compared to Brother Yu. This time I see that Gantian Mountain can at most gather 500 cloud ships along with Xian Mountain City. It won't exceed 1,000. With the 3 of us working together, just the number of ships we have is 3 times that of Gantian Mountain. With Brother Yu leading, we will be able to cause Gantian Mountain to fail and return empty-handed. When Yu Guanyun heard that, he laughed arrogantly and wasn't humble at all. His eyes shone slightly. I have an idea. Since this Zhong Shou doesn't know what's good for him, why don't we send envoys to ask those lackey subordinate cities of Gantian Mountain whether or not they will come to our 3 cities hunting together? Are they going to follow Gantian Mountain and eat until they run out of resources or come with us to hunt beasts? Xiongba and Feng Nu couldn't help but exchange glances with one another, their eyes filled with smiles. What Yu Guanyun said was exactly what the 2 of them wanted. At the same time, within Rainbow City 700 miles away, Zhong Shou, who was seen as a strong enemy by Yu Guanyun and Xiongba, had already infuriated Renbua to the point of going crazy. That day after breaking through to the 3rd meridian of the Earth Chakra, the first thing Zhong Shou did was to spend large amounts of gold and silver beast crystals to buy numerous expensive items. He hired a few merchants in Rainbow City. He decorated his own sleeping palace to be extremely luxurious. He also invited a few spirit masters who were good at laying out formations to make a heating formation for this small palace, causing it to be like spring all year round. He used a total of 700 to 800 grade 4 beast crystals. In the end, he even moved a fake mountain onto this giant toothless ship to make a small garden. However, as there wasn't enough time and it was hard to move it, he stopped. It made Rembua's heart hurt so much that his face turned ashen white. With this amount of money, it was enough for Gantian Mountain to recruit close to 100 Xiantian masters. However, Zhong Shou squandered it like that. No matter how he tried to persuade, Zhong Shou treated it as wind in his ears. not bothering at all. If it wasn't for him remembering his relationship with Zhong Shou in the past and also having some hope for Zhong Shou, he would have left right away. Apart from preparing daily necessities for these hundreds of cloud ships, he thought about it. He was thinking about it every day to lead Zhong Shou onto the right path. Even Chu Shui couldn't take it, feeling really worried every day. However, she was used to following Zhong Shou's orders. She wanted to persuade him, but she didn't know how to. Ruoshui didn't mind at all. She laid on the soft bed made from the Type 6 bear skin and slept lazily. As for Xian Yunlan, who followed along, naturally she couldn't take it. Even with the identity of an outsider, she felt that Zhong Shou was a little too extravagant. I heard that the wise rulers of the world are all thrifty and honest. Ruler, do you know that one grade 4 beast crystal can let 500 families not have to worry about food and clothing for 10 years? The money that ruler used to decorate the palace can feed a 10,000 army for a year? Chu Shui nodded her head vigorously. That's right, that year ruler couldn't even bear to have a good meal, only eating 4 dishes per meal. While saying that, she also stared in front of Zhong Shou. On a huge table, there were tens of dishes. They were all cooked by famous chefs, looking and smelling good, making her salivate. Xian Yunlan couldn't help but reveal a look of respect, thinking that Zhong Weiran was a true ruler who started a country. No wonder he could start from scratch and build such a huge empire. Unfortunately, in the end, he lost to his strong martial path talent. Zhong Shou was speechless, taking his chopsticks and heavily knocking on Chu Shui's head. If you don't know, then don't talk nonsense. If I don't spend those beast crystals, should I just leave them in my bag and let them rot? Don't you know that the path of money is in circulation? If the rich people of Gantian Mountain don't be extravagant and spend a lot, how will the poor people survive? Xian Yunlan was instantly stunned, looking at Zhong Shou like she was looking at a weirdo. Coincidentally, Renbois also walked in. After hearing that, he was startled. This was the first time he heard such words. Was Shang Qingjin wrong? Chapter 294. Not only the two of them, but Chu Shui was also at a loss. Ruoshui was also really interested, sitting up from the bed. If the rich didn't spend a lot and spend a lot, how would the poor have a way to live? These words sounded preposterous, but thinking about it, it made sense. Renbo was slightly stunned for a moment before he scoffed coldly, his eyes filled with rage. Ruler is spouting nonsense. The rich are extravagant to raise the people. What nonsense! In that peaceful world, maybe it makes some sense. But in Donglin Cloud Continent, when the cities are in chaos, it is asking for death. One must know that the resources and manpower in the world are limited. Every bit used here would mean a bit less there. Our Gantian Mountain is surrounded by strong enemies, and we should use farming and war methods to be thrifty and honest. We should throw all our resources into the army. Like ruler, splitting up the strength of the people. If the people of the country go to work for those rich merchants, how many people would be willing to work for the army? It was obvious that he was really angry. Rumbo's beard was trembling slightly. It is okay that ruler likes to be extravagant, but why do you have to say such words to disturb people's hearts? Do you know that if these words spread out, it will shake the foundations of the country? The nobles and merchants in the country will all follow suit. The simplicity left behind by the late emperor will definitely be gone. This time it was Zhong Shou's turn to be speechless. Being questioned by such a series of questions, he felt suffocated for some reason. He thought to himself that this old man actually had some ability. His excuse was actually seen through so quickly. He only knew that in the future countries, not only did they promote the flow of money, but they also encouraged people to spend. He forgot about the special situation of this era. These words were logical and made a lot of sense. However, looking at Rimbo's righteous look, Zhong Shou didn't know why, but he felt annoyed. He wasn't willing to be refuted by him. His eyes instantly squinted, numerous thoughts flashed across his mind. He even activated the great sky-changing meditation technique to swiftly deduce and calculate. Chu Shui beside him heaved a sigh of relief. She thought that the Prime Minister was really smart. She was just saying, how could such extravagance and waste become logical? The Crown Prince was indeed spouting nonsense to fool people. Just as he was thinking about that, he heard Zhong Shou laugh. Prime Minister, don't be angry. Zhong Shou only had one question for the Prime Minister. I wonder how much grain has been produced in 1 mu of land in the past 2 years? As he spoke, he picked up a bear's paw and nibbled on it. His mouth was dripping with oil. That Rinbo raised his white eyebrows, wishing he could overturn this banquet table. He could only force himself to endure and answer. Last year, 1 mu of grain was 4 dan. This year, it is not yet time to harvest grain. But according to my estimation, it should be around 4 stones and 2 bushels. Upon saying this, Rinbo's eyes widened slightly as if he had recalled something, causing him to fall into deep thought. 4 stones and 2 buckets. That's about the same number. I still remember that 2 years ago, 1 mu of grain was harvested with 3 stones and 8 bushels, right? Not only Gantian Mountain City, but the other countries are the same, right? Seeing that Rinbo didn't deny it, Zhong Shou nodded his head. Then with Prime Minister's knowledge, you should know that grain is cheap and harms the farmers. Naturally, the more grain there is, the more supply there is, and the price will naturally drop. Rinbo's expression was solemn and filled with shame. Gantian Mountain's grain production was slowly increasing. Why didn't he notice such a phenomenon? Luckily, he noticed it early, if not it would cause a huge problem. Xian Yunlan thought about it carefully and couldn't help but be shocked. If the grain can't be sold, then the oil, salt, clothing, pottery etc. naturally can't be changed. The farmers in the world don't learn martial arts and are unprepared. Most of them won't be able to make a living. Prime Minister, don't you think that makes sense? The entire sleeping hall was totally silent. Zhong Shou found it funny and continued to ask, Prime Minister, do you know the rough number of beasts in the wilderness outside the city? Is it decreasing year by year or is it increasing? Rinbo's face was green, but he had to answer that question. I don't know the exact number. I only know that this year there have been 4,300 cases of beasts hurting people, 3 times that of previous years. Zhong Shou was delighted and knew that he had totally grasped the situation. Then how much of what I am eating is from farmland and how much is from the wilderness? Of the artifacts used, how many came from those beasts? Rinbo looked out, only to see that a large portion of the table was filled with wild animals. The remaining came from the cloud ocean. Although the decorations here were luxurious, there was a large portion that came from beasts. That constant temperature formation was the same. The merchants in the world have no place to use the money they obtained and can only seal and store it. However, if those beast crystals and mind stones can't be circulated outside, how can they strengthen the people of Gantian Mountain? How can they strengthen the martial culture of our city? When he heard that, Rinbo understood what Zhong Shou meant. He couldn't help but break out in cold sweat and was speechless. Zhong Shou laughed coldly, asking once more, since that's the case, then what did I do wrong? Rinbo's expression was changing as he stood rooted to the spot. He didn't speak for a long time. When he opened his mouth once more, he bowed deeply. I understand. In the future, I will encourage hunters and reduce farmers to clear out beasts in the wilderness. Ruler is wise, killing many birds with 1 stone. I was wrong. I was rude just now. Ruler, please forgive me. After he said that, he bowed once more. His expression was really solemn as he backed out of Zhong Shou's sleeping hall. All of a sudden, he forgot the reason why he came to find Zhong Shou, leaving in a daze. Looking at Rinbo's back view, Zhong Shou's gleeful mood suddenly disappeared. In the depths of his heart, he felt a sense of guilt. This time he did go overboard. He was already tens of years old and looked much gentler. However, his competitive personality didn't change at all. He was deep in thought as he muttered, "This Rinbo, if he meets a wise ruler, he will definitely become a wise minister." Originally, he didn't have any other choice and could only use him. Now it seems like this person did indeed have the ability to rule a country. His words were so soft that they couldn't be heard, but Chu Shui, who was at the side, heard it clearly. Her eyes were filled with doubt. Of course, Prime Minister Ren is a wise minister. Since the previous ruler invited him back, Argantian mountain people's lives have been much better. Young Master is definitely a wise ruler. Prime Minister Ren never praises people. Even the previous ruler was scolded by him. However, since Young Master took over, Shui has heard Prime Minister praise you twice. Zhong Shou couldn't help but laugh, thinking to himself that he had nothing to do with any wise ruler. He was just using his 10,000 years of experience to bully others. Xian Yunlan sighed. Listening to the ruler's words is better than reading for 10 years. In the past, I only knew that it was good for people to live simply. However, I didn't think that spending money could improve the people's lives. Just as Zhong Shou was feeling light-headed once more, Ruoshui burst out laughing, her petite body once again lying on the bed. Just now I saw the ruler blink several times. When Xian Yunlan heard that, she was totally confused. Chu Shui understood moments later. She was furious, the respect in her eyes turned into disdain. She knew that whenever Zhong Shou lied, he had a habit of blinking. Speaking of which, when he invited people to decorate the palace and called for the banquet, the ruler didn't think so much. So those words that made Rinbo retreat in shame were just to fool people. He even said it in such a righteous manner. How shameless! Zhong Shou's face was as thick as a city wall. At this moment, he wasn't annoyed and his face didn't turn red. Instead, he smiled and didn't care. After enjoying a sumptuous feast, Zhong Shou took out tens of talismans along with the spiritual ink that he had mixed up from his heaven and earth bag. They were all produced by Seven Spirit Sect and Qinyin School, specially for direct disciples, top-grade items that were rarely seen on the market. However, these items weren't given by Wei Su, but he bought them himself. His senior brother obviously knew that he was rich, so he didn't give him any of these items. Zhong Shou was helpless and could only buy from Zhao Yinran and Xian Yunlan. The latter was okay, but the former was greedy and took a huge sum from him. Thus, between the two of them, there was one more grievance. For this matter, Zhong Shou cursed out Wei Su for an entire day. Solemn and deep in thought, Zhong Shou suddenly waved his brush. On the talisman paper, he wrote a swallow word and a purify word. Recently, due to Wei Su's help, his martial path cultivation had risen quickly. On the contrary, his spiritual cultivation and soul power had stagnated. Even if he cultivated a grade 10 Saint Spirit meditation technique, he was still unable to change it. If he didn't understand these two words, he wouldn't be able to raise his cultivation. Before Wei Su left, he seemed to know what he was thinking about. Out of the books he left, apart from the Great Sky-changing meditation technique as well as tens of common people path secret techniques, there were many other techniques. The rest were mostly related to the word devour and purify. However, there were very few spirit masters in the world who chose to form these two true spiritual talismans. Zhong Shou also took a look at some of them, but they weren't of much help to him. His recent comprehension seemed to have reached a dead end, unable to comprehend anything new. Luckily, at this moment, he had a new choice. He suddenly pulled out his sword and took out the broken 9 Qilin sword in his hand. Hesitating for a few breaths, Zhong Shou's face was filled with determination. Little Gold, whether or not your master can advance will depend on you. The moment such a thought rose up, Zhong Shou's left arm suddenly had a silver-white liquid with light golden threads flowing down. In a blink of an eye, it wrapped up the 9 Qilin sword. it caused the golden sword body to turn into a silver-white color. The moment the silver membrane completely covered the sword, Xiao Jin began to devour it. First, it secreted a special liquid which caused the spiritual gold to break down before it directly absorbed it into its body. Some metals that were useless to it were directly purified and removed. Chapter 295. Chuxue, who was beside him, was astonished. She had seen the power of this sword, although it was already broken. However, after Zhong Shou's spiritual pet used the item mimicking technique to repair it, it had a grade 7 spiritual artifact. Such a rare spiritual artifact, Zhong Shou actually let little gold swallow it. She instinctively wanted to exclaim out, but Ruoxue hugged her from behind. Turning her head and taking a look, she saw Ruoxue shaking her head, her tender finger by her lips to tell her to keep quiet. Totally swallowing and digesting the 9 qilin sword took close to 10 hours. When little gold softened into a ball, on one hand it was extremely excited, on the other it was exhausted. It laid softly in Zhong Shou's palm, its body lightly rubbing. This was also a method to express its joy. Moments later, it fell into a deep sleep. Zhong Shou had been quietly observing. After this sword was swallowed, it automatically entered a meditative state to comprehend. Swallow word, the world as a mouth, it also has the meaning of swallowing and occupying. All living beings in the world need to swallow other things to survive, so naturally they have the ability to purify and break down. Not only little gold. How did I forget about this point? Zhong Shou only felt that his thoughts were suddenly connected, following which he laughed out loud. Within his soul ocean, there was no need to test them one by one. Tens of true talismans were formed. At this moment, within his soul ocean, there were close to 200 true spiritual charms related to these 2 words, floating within the soul ocean whirlpool. Be it the swallow word or the purify word, they were both showing signs of forming. Zhong Shou had a feeling that when these true spiritual charms formed to a certain amount, he would not need to use his will. These 2 true spiritual talismans would automatically form without him needing to use his mind to guide them. From the middle of the night wandering realm to the return to sun realm in one step, his spiritual cultivation was not far from advancing. When he slowly woke up from his meditation, Xian Yunlan was no longer there. Xian Yunlan was long gone and only Chuxue was looking on worriedly from the side. As for Ruoxue, she was lying on his bed in a light sleep. More than half of the poison in her body had been removed. However, although his body had recovered, he was left with the problem of insufficient energy. Half of the day was spent sleeping, and in the limited time he was awake, Ruoxue would always disappear without a trace. After a long time, she came back dripping with sweat. Sometimes he would be so tired that he would fall asleep in the bathtub. Seeing that Zhong Shou had awakened, Chuxue was immediately overjoyed. Then, with a complicated expression, she said, "Young master, that 9 qilin sword is gone just like that?" Zhong Shou smiled but did not answer. He looked at Xiao Jin, who was still lying in his palm. He had originally given up on comprehending the 2 words devour and purify. He estimated that it would take at least 8 months to a year to complete it, but who would have thought that in the end there would be a glimmer of hope? He didn't know what method Wei Su used to stabilize Little Gold's foundation, allowing it to advance again. From this, he was able to grasp some hope of forming these 2 true spiritual talismans. Thanks to this little fellow, he had saved several months of hard work this time. At this moment, several hours had passed since he entered the meditation state. Xiao Jin had obviously recovered some of his energy, and was jumping around in his hands. Zhong Shou's brows furrowed, and his mind moved slightly. He saw that originally jelly-like soft body suddenly stretch out. It first stretched out into the shape of a sword, and then swiftly solidified. When the entire process was completed, there was one more long sword in Zhong Shou's hand. It was golden, and on it was also carved the shape of 9 qilin. When Chu Shui saw that, she was startled. After a short while, she asked hesitantly, "This is the 9 qilin sword?" Without a doubt, it was the 9 qilin sword that had been swallowed. Apart from the spiritual energy grade, which seemed to be grade 5, everything else was the same. It also didn't have that strong and unstable aura like before. It was obvious that it could be maintained for a long time. It is the 9 qilin sword. A weird glow flashed in Zhong Shou's eyes. At grade 5, Little Gold's ability to mimic things had totally stabilized. As long as it was something that it had swallowed, it could mimic and mimic it. If it was something of the same grade, not only would the effect not be any weaker, but it could even strengthen it. At this time, this little fellow barely had the ability of Wanxiang, the aura of a god beast. When it reached the next grade, grade 6, not only could it mimic spiritual artifacts, but it could even change into various living beings and beasts. Not only was it perfect, but its natural ability wouldn't be any weaker. Its strength was so strong that it could be said to be perverted amongst same-grade beasts. In the next few days, Zhong Shou didn't have time to comprehend martial arts and spells. At this moment, the elites that were chosen to head to the Cloud Ocean to hunt beasts and evil spirits had all gathered in Rainbow City. They boarded the ships and waited for the day to leave. Those grain, armor, and daily necessities were all prepared and loaded onto the ship. After Rinbo had finished preparing everything, Lin Fan's expression changed. The cloud ships of the other subordinate cities all rushed over. 5 provinces, a total of 367 cities. Of course, there were many who held back their strength and couldn't come. However, there were also many who were loyal and went all out to help. Some city lords even personally rushed over. Zhong Shou also didn't have much free time. Pretty much every day he had to meet a few city lords and envoys. These vassal countries and subordinate cities that rushed over could be considered loyal to Gantian Mountain City. No matter how impatient Zhong Shou was, he had to treat them with respect and comfort them with warm words. Although he wasn't reliable when he did things, at this time he knew the severity of the matter. His words and actions weren't arrogant at all, giving off the aura of an experienced person. It made Rinbo, who was originally a little worried, feel really happy. On the 10th day since he arrived in Rainbow City, this huge cloud ship fleet finally set off. 470 warships and 400 merchant ships left the port one by one and floated in the cloud ocean. It stretched for 10,000 feet. Looking out, it was indeed a huge scene. However, in Gantian Mountain City, Zhong Shou didn't bring any of the Xuanwu experts who were ranked at the top. Beside him was Zhong Yuan, Li Luo, and Ruoshui. At most, there was Tan Tao, whose combat strength could only be considered above average. Along with Gu Laikong, there were a total of 10 Xuanwu experts. In terms of spirit masters, they weren't weak. Old priest Zhong Ling, Ling Feikong, and one more. In the end, like Li Luo, Shi Dan chose to stay in Gantian Mountain City. The spells of the 3 of them were all unique, and their strength far exceeded people of the same grade. Apart from these 3, there were 6 other Return to Sun Realm spirit masters. Just Return to Sun Realm alone, there were 9 of them. Under the cloud ocean, there were numerous materials suitable for refining pills, crafting artifacts, and cultivating spells. No matter what, these spirit masters wouldn't miss out on them. However, most of these spirit masters came from the Sky Fox and Eye Wolf races. The 2 races were able to survive after the Cloud Desolate era. They were able to remain strong amongst the monster race. That was because pretty much everyone in the Sky Fox race could dual cultivate. The Eye Wolf race also had a high chance of producing spirit masters. Their abilities were only below the Sky Fox illusionary technique. The reason why he brought Ling Feikong over was because of that. After that night of Gantian Mountains change, the Eye Wolf race more or less had grievances towards him. At the crucial moment, Probably only the old race leader of the Eye-Wolf race could control the spirit masters of the Eye-Wolf race. On the day they set off, people like Hu Qianqiu, Chai Yun, Zhong Gang, and Qiu Wei all came to send them off. However, their faces were filled with unwillingness. Like they were really annoyed that Zhong Shou had abandoned them, these old officials. Even the people on the ship were a little uneasy. Hu Zhongyuan was a little worried. "Ruler, aren't we being too careless this time? In the past, when our Gantian mountain hunted, even if the previous ruler didn't lead the team, my father, Uncle Chai, and Uncle Lan's generation would have at least 3 to 4 people." At this moment, most of the people on the ship are new. Their experience is really shallow and doesn't seem appropriate. Jun Shang had no other choice. Before Zhong Shou replied, Tan Tao, who acted as the brains, smiled bitterly. Taoyuan City recently had a huge army pressing down. Although Yunxiao and Blazing Flame City lost a lot at Rawhai Straits, they didn't suffer any serious injuries. The entire army only suffered tens of thousands of casualties. On the south and east sides they are still really aggressive. I dare to bet that if there are any accidents during our Cloud Ocean hunt, it will be when the 3 cities invade. That's right. That's right. As the Overlord Duke and the others are the pillars of Argantian Mountain, the ruler wants them to stay to suppress the 4 directions. Hu Zhongyuan's brows furrowed, but he didn't say anything. He also knew that the situation of Gantian Mountain was still really serious. However, hunting beasts was the most important thing. As long as he successfully obtained enough beast crystals, all his problems would naturally be solved. If they failed, no matter how Gantian Mountain suppressed, they wouldn't be able to solve the situation of their powers falling apart. However, the 4 directions of Gantian Mountain did need generals to defend. Li Luo and Zhong Yuan also obviously agreed with Hu Zhongyuan's words. However, the former had just joined Gantian Mountain and had too little experience. As for the latter, he was purely unwilling to doubt Zhong Shou's decision. At this moment, Zhong Shou was looking at a letter. It was left by Yin Yang. The general idea was that the sect had matters and he needed to make a trip. He also needed to take back some things that should belong to him. It made him feel really surprised, not knowing what happened to Yin Yang's sect to need him to leave so hurriedly. Out of the many people he brought with him, apart from Zhong Yuan, Chu Shui, and Ruoshui, the one he had high hopes for was this Uncle Yin. It was okay if he didn't make a sound, but when he did, he shocked everyone. In just 3 to 5 years, Yin Yang would be able to use his strong foundations to improve and step into the ascended realm. No matter what, he wasn't willing to give up on such a talent. His brows furrowed in deep thought. After a short moment, Zhong Shou suddenly clenched his fist, crushing the letter. "Let's set off. Speaking of the Sea of Clouds, 1 capital Governor Gu is enough." Gu Liekong's brows furrowed. After bowing slightly, he left on his own. A moment later, the giant squadron opened up their sails and set off, using the wind to glide above the cloud ocean. Their speed was really quick. In a short day they had traveled 2,000 miles. They could see a giant cloud island in the distance. Chapter 296. This island wasn't big, at most 300,000 feet from north to south. It wasn't much bigger than the flat land at the peak of Gantian Mountain. However, it was really prosperous. From afar, one could see numerous cloud ships docked outside. There were close to 6,000 to 7,000 of them. They were all huge warships, majestic and majestic. This place was known as Psychic Island. Its spiritual energy was really abundant, only weaker than the 19 spiritual houses. However, till date, no sect was able to successfully occupy it. It became the east of the cloud world, a famous place where cultivators gathered. Zhong Shou stood at the head of the 5-toothed giant ship. From afar, he could see 200 blood-colored flags with the words Xianyuan on them dancing in the wind. There were also hundreds of cloud ships surrounding it. Xianyuan blood flag, It's the cloud ships of Xian Mountain City. Hu Zhongyuan's brows rose up, following which his expression sunk down, only to see that the thousands of cloud ships seemed to be those of Xian Mountain City. West Ocean Taoyuan City, Blazing Flame Mountain City, Yunxia Mountain City. Why do these three cities have so many warships? Looking out, there were close to 4,000, 10 times more than Gantian Mountain. Just the 5-tooth warships alone, there were 200. That 7-tooth warship was like a crane in a flock of chickens. The faces of Gu Laikong, Zhong Yuan and the others turned cold and solemn, rage appearing in their eyes. It wasn't that these three cities had thousands of warships, but that many of them should belong to Gantian Mountain City. Zhong Ling was furious, his face flushing red. They are really bullies. Out of all of them, there weren't many who were worried that the warships of the three cities would attack here. The depths of the cloud ocean were usually the private lands of the various hidden sects and were managed by the various sects together. The beasts and evil spirits below were a huge problem for the various sects and even the entire human race. Zhong Shou's eyes squinted, following which he smiled without caring. Don't worry about them. I heard that every time the cities sink into the cloud ocean, they need to report to the sects here, right? Seeing Zhong Ling and the others nod their heads, Zhong Shou took the lead and walked down the boat. Anyway, it was better to go ashore first and deal with the matter properly. The psychic island was simply too small, and it was unable to dock a huge ship. The group could only take a small boat to Psychic Island. Just as Zhong Shou stepped onto the dock, he saw Zhu Junho leading a group of people over. Xianyuan Iren was naturally within. He was still wearing a tight-fitting robe with a long sword hanging from his waist. Valiant, with a powerful aura, and incomparably handsome. However, his expression was somewhat gloomy. But when she looked at Zhong Shou, her eyes flashed with sweetness and tenderness. "Why are you 2 days late?" After the two sides exchanged greetings, Xianyuan Iren naturally stood beside Zhong Shou. Her eyes then moved and her gaze landed on Xian Yunlan like water. She then asked very curiously, "Little Shou, is this the third concubine you found recently? She's so beautiful." Xian Yunlan's face instantly flushed red. Zhong Shou also said awkwardly, "What nonsense are you talking about? This is my senior sister, the direct disciple of the Tsang Xingdao 3 sects and 6 schools of the Qinyin school. She followed me because she had something to do." Xianyuan Iren made an "oh" sound but didn't express anything. Her expression was like she didn't care much. She reached out her small hand and held tightly with Zhong Shou, not avoiding the gazes of others. Zhong Shou felt that something wasn't right, his brows furrowing as he exclaimed, "Iren, you advanced? Night Wandering Realm?" He knew that half a year ago, Xianyuan Iren used the external pill to have Xiantian strength. Then, she used the Chill Spirit Mysterious Sense pill recipe that he left to solve the problem of her cultivation method. Only then did she enter the Earth Chakra realm for both her spiritual and martial cultivation. Looking at it now, in just 2 months, Xianyuan Iren had advanced once more. She wasn't at true Qi cultivation and was already a martial ancestor. Even her soul power was at the night wandering level. Xianyuan Iren smiled gleefully and didn't explain. She just took out a few bottles of pills and waved them in front of Zhong Shou. Spirit Purifying Snow Pill, Intense Chill Frost Pill, Extreme Mysterious Flame Pill. Zhong Shou took a look and understood. Normal spirit cultivators used spells or talismans to comprehend true spiritual talismans. However, the pill masters of Pill Fountain sect were different. They used pill refinement to comprehend the path of heaven and earth and form true spiritual talismans. It was often said that the cauldron had its own heaven and earth and its own path. They had a full set of pill recipes for their disciples to cultivate while refining pills. Xianyuan Iren refined these few pills and naturally grasped these few true spiritual talismans, following which, Samaraim's body lit up and shone with a godlight. Spirit Purifying Snow Pill? How did he forget that Song Xingdao didn't record the purifying talisman in detail? However, pill fountain sect that focused on pill refinement definitely had it. Coincidentally, there was a genius pill master in front of him who he could ask for advice. He would definitely be able to break through once more. However, at this moment, it wasn't convenient to talk about this matter. Only to hear Zhu Junho scoff coldly, "This Taoyuan city is just too much." His tone was exactly the same as Zhong Ling's. Zhong Shou scoffed and looked towards where everyone was looking. He saw a middle-aged man close to 40 wearing a robe walking over in large steps, his aura majestic. Without needing to think, just looking at Lin Ji who was following respectfully behind him, one knew that this person was the Taoyuan City Lord Yu Guanyin. Beside him were two people who walked beside him, their faces cold. However, the characteristics of the Wind Leopard and Flame Bear races were really obvious. One was tall and muscular while the other was thin and capable. In front of the few of them, Yu Guanyin cupped his fists. "Taoyuan City Yu Guanyin greets City Lord Zhong. Is City Lord Zhong also prepared to head to the Cloud Ocean to hunt?" When Xiongba and Feng Nu heard that, they both smiled. Zhong Shou wasn't willing to bother. Following this, he would definitely be mocked by these few people. He didn't have the time to listen. He directly pulled Xianyuan Iran and walked into the island. Yu Guanyin's face instantly turned green, scoffing coldly. "A few days ago when my subordinate went to Rainbow City, he told me that the new Gantian Mountain City Lord is a rude and uneducated person. Before this, I didn't believe it, but now it seems like it is true." As soon as these words were spoken, the atmosphere on the pier suddenly became hostile. Xiongba also laughed coldly, looking towards the tall and muscular person behind Zhong Shou. "Vast country duke, is this Chai Yuan's eldest son Chai Zhou? Your Wind Bear race is also part of my Xiong tribe. In the past, he had some small misunderstandings and had a conflict with my Flame Bear race, which was why he left. However, those grievances have passed for hundreds of years. Now that Gantian Mountain is at its end, does your Wind Bear bloodline still want to follow this kid and walk down the dark path?" Chai Zhou was the person who followed behind Chai Yuan that night. Since Zhong Shou took over, he was shoved into Zhong Shou's close guards by Chai Yuan. When he heard that, he directly mocked, "You don't need to worry. My ruler is more talented than the previous ruler. Who knows who will be the one at the end of their road?" Suddenly his expression changed as he stared at an old man in his 50s. "Xierong, you actually dare to betray my Gantian Mountain?" Only then did everyone realize that behind the three of them, there were at least 10 people who belonged to Gantian Mountain. Their gazes were as sharp as blades as they slashed towards Xierong. Yu Guanyin smiled slightly, not stopping and not speaking up for Xierong. Xierong's expression changed slightly. After hesitating, he smiled bitterly and bowed. "Xierong greets City Lord. Our Shijia city hasn't had any beast crystals for close to a year. The success or failure of this cloud hunt is really important. City Lord Yu has summoned us and we have no choice but to come." As he said that, Zhong Ling, Zhong Gang and Hu Zhongyuan's expressions became colder and colder. Even with the identity of a sinner, Ling Feikong's eyes were filled with killing intent. Xierong gritted his teeth, "Since City Lord and all of you can't understand, then from today on, our Shijia city won't belong to Gantian Mountain." Yu Guanyin instantly laughed out loud, his pride charging into the heavens. Since ancient times, a good bird chooses a tree to nest in. Today's choice, City Lord Xie will be happy for the rest of your life. Happy for the rest of your life? Zhong Shou scoffed coldly, but he wasn't annoyed. These three people were obviously trying to sow discord. If he was really angered, then he would have fallen for it. Turning around and taking a look, he saw that everyone was really emotional. Like Hu Zhongyuan and the other juniors all had their hands on their weapons. Zhong Shou's brows furrowed slightly, scoffing lightly. Humans don't talk to beasts, is it interesting to talk to these animals? Let's go. After saying that, he took the lead and left. Be it Gantian Mountain City or Xian Mountain City people, their expressions were all solemn. When they heard the words beast and animal, their faces smiled, not saying a word as they left. This caused Yu Guanyun and the other two to be shocked. They came over this time to see Zhong Shou's strength and also to sow discord. However, at the same time, he also had the thought of making Zhong Shou's troops leave. However, looking at the current situation, not only did the Gantian Mountain City people follow his orders, not daring to show any disrespect. Even the few Xuanwu ancestors and Day wandering spirit masters of Xian Mountain City were respectful. Their respect for Zhong Shou was even higher than Xianyuan Iran. It was like they really treated Zhong Shou as the city lord and respected him. Apart from being shocked, they also didn't understand. Yu Guanyun's face turned green. Your mouth is so dirty. Didn't your dead father teach you how to talk to people? Zhong Shou didn't have any intentions of turning his head, hollering out, the matter my envoy mentioned a few days ago is still effective. Today if you Zhong Shou are willing to give up half a province of land, Gantian Mountain City won't dare to offend us. My Taoyuan City will definitely not make things difficult for you. Instead, we will do our best to help you. If you aren't willing. Yu Guanyun's eyes were filled with killing intent, his tone suddenly turned ice cold. I will make sure your Gantian Mountain City doesn't have a single tile left, not a single blade of grass left. Samuraim's light flashed, his body stabilizing as he smiled and continued forwards. However, some coldness also flashed across his eyes. This last sentence of Yu Guanyun had finally succeeded in stirring the fury in his heart. A thread of killing intent also rose within his heart. He hated being threatened. At this moment, apart from threats, there was also extortion. Chapter 297. I heard that this Yu Guanyun is prepared to officially establish a country and call himself king. What a joke! Hu Zhongyuan walked while his eyes were filled with a mocking expression. Just 4 provinces of land. In the past when the late ruler was there, he ruled 9 provinces and didn't even call himself king. This Yu Guanyun actually dares to be a step ahead. His personality is so arrogant. The moment he said those words, although the people around didn't speak, their faces all showed their agreement. What happened just now made them feel like they had a common enemy. Zhong Shou didn't bother, thoughts flying in his head. Originally, based on what he wanted, he just needed to get more beast crystals. He wasn't prepared to bother about the alliance fleet of the 3 cities. However, just now that Yu Guanyun did infuriate him. Naturally, this plan needed to be changed. He only hoped that this psychic island would have such things for sale. The reporting place for the Cloud Ocean Hunt was not far from the pier, in a small building. When Zhong Shou rushed over, he was slightly shocked. The person in charge of guarding here was actually Lingyun Sek's Long Ru. What was surprising was that Lei Dong and Zhao Yanran were there too. He was filled with questions in his heart, but Zhong Shou's face didn't reveal any weird expressions. After exchanging greetings with one another, they went straight to the main topic. Your Gantian Mountain and Xian Mountain City want to use the Cloud Ocean Whirlpool Ladder near Psychic Island? Long Rua seemed to have expected it and wasn't surprised. He only focused on observing Zhong Shou. However, no matter how he looked, Zhong Shou didn't say anything. Apart from some lightning sparks appearing around Zhong Shou's body, maybe due to some spiritual artifact, there wasn't anything surprising about him. The true qi and soul power that he cultivated in the past had disappeared without a trace. His soul and body seemed to be protected by something such that one couldn't see clearly anymore. He was filled with questions in his heart for a moment, but Long Rua didn't pay much attention to it. He purposely came here to take a look at Zhong Shou. Whether or not he was as the rumors said. However, at this moment, he felt both disappointed and relaxed. There's quite a lot of free time there. However, City Lord Zhong Shou should know about this rule. Every cloud ship costs 10 grade 4 beast crystals. 5 Fong giant warships, 5 more. If you choose to share, you don't have to pay. Zhong Shou curled his lips in disdain. It was precisely because of these secluded sects that they occupied more than a dozen Cloud Sea whirlpool ladders that led to the bottom of the Cloud Sea. There were many forces in the world that had no choice but to report to these sects every time they went to the Cloud Sea to hunt. Over the years, it was unknown how much money he had been extorted. However, at this moment, he was under someone else's roof. He had no choice but to lower his head. He didn't dare to choose to split and directly took out a bag with 110 grade 6 beast crystals inside. Long Rua only took a quick glance before keeping it with satisfaction. Then, he heard Zhong Shou say, "I would like to hire some soaring cloud sect's inner disciples to board the ship." Hire my sect's disciples? Long Rua's brows twitched and immediately understood what Zhong Shou meant. This was a good way to prevent Taoyuan and Blazing Flame City from taking the chance to attack. With the soaring cloud sect disciples there, no matter how many methods those 3 had, they wouldn't be able to use them. He couldn't help but smile, sure. However, to hire my sect's disciples, the price isn't cheap. Zhong Shou didn't speak, directly taking out another bag. Long Rua's eyes swept and saw that within it were 200 grade 6 beast crystals. Although the price of beast crystals had depreciated by 10 times, however, it was still a huge sum of money. He immediately nodded his head slightly. Deal? Half a day later, I will send 40 soaring cloud sect disciples onto the ship. However, they will only help you hunt beasts. If you face life-threatening danger, you can choose to stay or leave. The faces of the people behind Zhong Shou were filled with joy and worry. They were happy because Zhong Shou's methods were really smart. Using the strength of the soaring cloud sect disciples, they could reduce the threat of the 4,000 cloud ships by half. They were worried because before they even entered the Cloud Sea, they had already lost 300 grade 6 beast crystals. Who knows if they could earn it back this time? After discussing the important matters, Zhong Shou didn't say any more nonsense, directly taking his leave. However, when he left, Long Rua suddenly said to Xianyuan Iran, "Is this junior sister Xianyuan? I am good friends with senior brother Han Nishui of Mysterious Cloud Spirit Sect. I've heard about the 2 of you. The marriage between the 2 of you is of great importance. Junior sister Xianyuan, please consider it carefully." Xianyuan Iran's brows instantly furrowed. Zhong Shou's face sunk slightly, his good impression of Long Rua instantly disappearing. He thought to himself, why was this person so troublesome? However, he wasn't willing to bother and directly walked out. If it wasn't for him remembering the 12 God Talisman Seeds and the cloud-shocking God-destroying sword intent, he would go all out to fight with Long Rua today. At this moment, be it Zhao Yanran or Xian Yunlan, their expressions were really ugly. The 2 of them had long known about junior sister Xuanyuan's marriage dispute. Long Rua's words could be seen as a humiliation and provocation to their entire Tsang Xingdao 3 sects and 6 schools. Zhong Shou as the second-generation direct disciple of Tsang Xingdao. His identity was several generations higher than the various sect leaders of the 3 sects and 6 schools. The true core. What was that Han Nishui? What was the identity of this Long Rua to dare to interfere in this matter? Even if the 2 of them didn't like Zhong Shou, when they faced such a matter, they had to help. Zhao Yinran nearly drew her sword on the spot but was stopped by Lei Dong in time. She directly scoffed, "I think senior brother Long should be careful when you speak. Don't cause a sect wiping out calamity for your Lingyun sect." After saying that, she walked out of the door with a serious face. The people following Zhong Shou all had ugly expressions on their faces. However, at this moment, since Zhong Shou didn't flare up, he couldn't forcefully come out and could only leave silently. Lei Dong beside also sighed and stood up, Brother Long, you have always been smart. However, today's matter will make you regret it for the rest of your life. Like what that little girl Yenran said, you should be careful with your words and actions in the future. It wasn't easy for your Lingyun sect to be established in Donglin and have 10,000 years of legacy. Long Ruo was slightly shocked. He didn't care about Zhao Yenran's words. However, Lei Dong, who was also from the righteous path, had to care about it. His tone was filled with surprise. Brother Lei, what is the reason for this Zong Shou to be so heavily protected by you? Has this kid already entered Taiyuan sect? Even if he entered Taiyuan sect, he didn't care much. With Zong Shou's situation, he definitely wouldn't be able to have much achievements. Maybe at this moment, the person who accepted Zong Shou in Taiyuan sect still didn't know that Zong Shou's soul was broken and he had barriers from heaven. Lei Dong was speechless, thinking to himself that Zong Shou's identity was much higher than his. However, it was limited to the trade between the Kenzo sect and Song Sheng Dao. At least for these few years, the Kenzo sect had to keep it a secret. As for the matter of my sworn brother, I can't talk about it in detail. However, I have something to tell you today. If your Lingyun sect and Mysterious Cloud Spirit sect want to harm my brother or sister-in-law, then I will fight you. I, Lei Dong, will go all out to fight. The moment he said that, Lei Dong didn't stay any longer, directly walking out of the building, only leaving Long Ruo with a face filled with confusion. His intuition told him that Zong Shou's situation wasn't as simple as it looked on the surface. Walking on the streets, Zong Shou held Xian Yuan Iren's hand. After walking a few steps, he took in a deep breath and calmed himself down. He was still furious, but at least he wasn't filled with rage anymore, wanting to pull out his sword to kill. As for Lei Dong and Zhao Yenran, they followed behind. The latter didn't say a word, but Lei Dong smiled and chatted with him about the past. He was filled with grievances about the few jugs of wine that Zong Shou had extorted from him last time. In the end, he sighed, what I regret the most in my life is that I wasn't able to get Brother Shou to join my Wujua villa. The Sword Venerable is wise, but he is definitely wrong about this matter. Zong Shou smiled, it wasn't worth a word. Lei Dong didn't say much, his expression was filled with melancholy, speaking of which we are brothers. After becoming sworn brothers, we actually didn't have a chance to gather and drink a cup. Originally, I was free after everything ended. However, I need to rush back to see Miss Jinru, so I won't accompany you. If we have a chance to meet in the future. His eyes were filled with joy and eagerness. He pretty much left right away, instructing some things before hurriedly leaving. Samurai sent this cheap big brother away, following which he glanced at Zhao Yenran. Although he didn't make a sound, his eyes were talking. Why aren't you leaving? Are you obstructing things here? Zhao Yenran was exasperated, embarrassed, and angry. After a short while, she opened her mouth helplessly. Do you think I am willing to be with you? Senior Master instructed me to follow you and protect you. Also, Master said that he wanted me to use the reverse seed cauldron technique on your body. Zong Shou was stunned before he came back to his senses. The seed cauldron was a common cultivation method of the Seven Spirit sect. The cultivation speed of the disciples in the sect wasn't obvious at the start. However, once they found a suitable cauldron to help refine their own seed, their cultivation would instantly soar. As for the reverse seed cauldron, it was as the name suggested. It used the seed of the caster to strengthen the cauldron. Naturally, the female disciples of the Seven Spirits sect wouldn't sacrifice themselves to help others and gain nothing. The strengthening of the cauldron could also nourish the seed. It was a win-win cultivation path. It was different from the seed cauldron that swept across the essence energy of others. However, the requirements for the cauldron were several times higher. If not only would there be no benefits, but it would also drag down the cultivation of both sides. It was obvious that Zhao Yenran's master felt that Zong Shou could be such a cauldron. With Zhao Yenran's little cultivation, Zhong Shou didn't care about her anymore. What following and protecting, this reverse seed cauldron technique, was the most important thing. However, to him, it wasn't a problem. This technique was exquisite and didn't need to go to bed to dual cultivate. Moreover, the reverse seed cauldron technique would be of huge help to him. He directly smiled. You have to ask my Iran first. Apart from that, do you know? After the reverse seed cauldron, if Zhao Yanran has feelings of attachment to me, Zhong Shou, your life will be in my hands. Your life and death in the future will be in my hand. Is this a great inner demon? I know, what do I have to fear? Zhao Yanran's brows rose up in provocation. Then, she looked towards Xianyuan Iran, who was filled with anticipation. However, in the end, she couldn't say anything to beg. Her brows furrowed as she directly threw a bag to Zhong Shou. This is my seed. Do you want it or not? After saying that, she left like she was escaping. Zhong Shou laughed behind her, his mood suddenly much better. Chapter 298. Shrugging his shoulders, he took the bag in his hand. Zhong Shou smiled and looked towards Xianyuan Iran with a questioning gaze. Although the reverse seed cauldron technique was beneficial to him, however, he still had to ask his fiancée about such matters. Xianyuan Iran originally had a straight face, but in the end she couldn't help but burst out laughing, turning her face away. I said that as long as you have the ability, I don't care even if you find 8 or 10 wives. Although she said that she didn't care, her hand circled around Zhong Shou's waist. Then, he hesitated slightly and said with some uncertainty, I know her. She is the blessed daughter of the Seven Spirits sect. She once visited my sect and no one in the same generation could beat her. At that time, she was as arrogant as a swan, like a celestial. I really want to see how she would fall for you, little Shou. However, this goes against the path of righteousness, and I also don't want to use you as a tool. How contradictory. Zhong Shou clicked his tongue and didn't comment, keeping the bag in the end. A small half of the entire psychic island was a market. The place was too small, so the streets were naturally small too. There were mountains and oceans of people, making it extremely crowded. Zhong Shou brought the group of people to stroll around. At this moment, he didn't have the mood to look at those small houses, nor did he have time to look at the stalls. He directly ran towards the few shops that specialized in selling spiritual artifacts. In Donglin Cloud Continent, in terms of artifact crafting, although Kongqi sect was the most famous, they did have their own unique areas. Like Lingyun sect, Seven Spirits sect, which occupied the top of the 19 spiritual houses, they also had decent artifact crafting legacies. On this psychic island there were 10 other large sects that operated here. However, just as Zhong Shou was planning to directly enter a 7-spirit treasure hall of 7 spirit sect, out of the corner of his eye, he suddenly saw a figure looking over from afar. The figure was filled with resentment. The corners of his lips curled up as he turned a corner and walked into another 7-story building. Walking to the highest level, the first person he saw was someone he was familiar with. Isn't this Deacon Qiao? Long time no see. How have you been? The person standing on the first floor was the Kongqi sect outer sect Deacon Qiao Han. When he looked at Zhong Shou, his face turned green, saying stiffly, It's not a deacon, it's the shopkeeper. He didn't know that City Lord Zhong was here. What was the matter? If you want to do business, you can talk to your subordinate. I, Qiao Han, swear that I will never do business with you, Zhong Shou, ever again. Zhong Shou raised his eyebrows. Shopkeeper? In other words, he was demoted. No wonder he was so resentful. However, he smiled faintly and walked over to Qiao Han without a care in the world. It's easy to manage a business. Naturally, there are losses and profits. How can you blame me? Previously, shopkeeper Qiao had indeed suffered a great loss. But a few days ago, didn't shopkeeper Qiao also earn quite a bit from me? 10,000 Grade 2 spiritual arrows were sold for 5,000 Grade 4 beast crystals. For the same price, if it was in the past, you would be able to buy 5 times the amount. Xiao Han scoffed, not appreciating his kindness. It was 8,000 Grade 2 fire lightning arrows and 6,000 intense ice arrows. To be able to complete it with those 300 three-armed spiritual crossbows within 10 days, only my Kongqi sect could do it. So, selling those 3-armed spiritual crossbows to me might not be a loss. If I was doing this business, you might as well sell those 3-armed spiritual crossbows at a cheap price. Just by selling the spiritual arrows, you would be able to earn back your capital. Xiao Han's expression froze up, his eyes filled with deep thought. The people at the side like Chu Shui, Hu Zhongyuan and the others all exchanged glances with one another. They all thought to themselves, this pitiful person has been fooled by our young master again. Then, they heard Zhong Shou say casually, "Did your Kongqi sect craft energy-destroying crossbows?" Xiao Han came back to his senses, feeling annoyed that he was tricked by Zhong Shou's words. However, his tone wasn't as cold as before. Energy-destroying crossbows? Naturally, we have them. These are items to suppress the beast wave under the cloud ocean. The various sects all purchase them. I have 100 of them here. However, although this item is huge, each one needs at least 1 Grade 6 beast crystal. Even a large sect like Lingyun's sect can't afford it. Why does the city lord need this item? He knew that this new monster king of Gantian Mountain was the smartest. Hence, Xiao Han didn't hide anything from his words. Suddenly, Xiao Han thought back to the 4,000 cloud ships gathered outside of Psychic Island. He couldn't help but take in a deep cold breath. City Lord, please reconsider. Under the cloud ocean, private battles are strictly prohibited. If not, the various sects of the cloud world will gang up on you. Other people couldn't afford to use these items and weren't willing to. The rich Zhong Shou definitely didn't have a problem. The pupils of Chu Shui and the others constricted. 1 Grade 6 beast crystal. That was 100 Grade 4 beast crystals. That was January 300 of Gantian Mountain's annual income. What is Brother Qiao thinking about? I came to buy these energy-destroying crossbows to deal with the beasts below. Zhong Shou's smile was pure and innocent, his eyes shining with a weird glow. 4,000 three-armed spiritual crossbows sold to me at a low price. I will order 1,000,000 Grade 2 spiritual arrows. A total of 200,000 Grade 4 beast crystals within 2 years. Will this deal allow Brother Qiao to return to the position of deacon? Xiao Han's expression changed slightly. If he did such a huge deal, not to mention returning to his position as an outer sect deacon, even becoming an outer sect elder was enough. This deal was far from just 200,000 Grade 4 beast crystals. Selling 4,000 three-armed spiritual crossbows, in the future if Gantian Mountain wanted to buy spiritual arrows, apart from Kongqi sect, they had no other choice. Zhong Shou looked at his expression and knew that today's matter had succeeded. A devil-like smile appeared on his handsome face. Apart from that, I want to purchase more energy-destroying crossbows, however many you have. Kongqi sect shouldn't be the only one with such items on Psychic Island. Deacon Qiao, please help me purchase and allocate. Naturally, you need to keep this a secret. This time Xiao Han thought about it seriously before his brows relaxed. Deal. I will buy the energy-destroying crossbows at market price, each one for 10 Grade 6 beast crystals. If I don't take advantage of you, the city lord can forget about getting any benefits. Chu Shui and the others held their breath. 1 energy-destroying crossbow was 1,000 Grade 4 beast crystals. 100 of them would be 100,000. What was this thing that was so expensive? With Zhong Shou's personality, he was actually willing? Zhong Shou shook his head, suddenly walking in front of a weapon rack and taking down a sword. What a coincidence, this was another soul weapon. However, the lightning-winged yang snake sealed within was a Grade 6 beast. which meant that when it was alive, it was at least a grade 7 beast. Casually keeping the sword into his small heaven and earth bag, Zhong Shou laughed and said without hesitation, "I don't need any benefits. However, this time I need to buy something to cover up. Why don't you give me this sword as a bonus?" A total of 800 energy-destroying crossbows were sent by Qiao Han onto Zhong Shou's ship. Who knows what methods Qiao Han used, but the matter was done in secret. The entire Psychic Island didn't have any news at all. At least Taoyun, Blazing Flame, and Yunxia's cloud ships didn't show any signs of abnormalities. Although the name of the energy-destroying crossbow had the word crossbow, it actually had nothing to do with a crossbow. It was a pure black cannon barrel that was 120 feet long and half a foot tall. On it was drawn a complicated spiritual formation, and at the back there was a groove for beast crystals to be inlaid. It could directly convert the essence energy within the grade 6 beast crystals into highly concentrated destructive spiritual energy to charge out. This was why it was called energy destroying. It was so strong that even grade 7 experts had to be wary of it. The assembly was simple. The energy destroying crossbow had its own base and just needed to be fixed on the deck. However, this item and the 3-armed spiritual crossbow both had their pros and cons. The biggest weakness of the apocalyptic crossbow was that it converted spiritual energy at a very slow speed. When it was launched, those ascended experts, grade 7 beasts, who knows where they went. Even a day-wandering spirit master had enough time to change the position of the spell altar. Although the killing strength of the 3-armed spiritual crossbow was weak, it was accurate and quick. If it was paired with grade 5 spiritual arrows, even power was better than the energy-destroying crossbow. After obtaining the goods, along with the deposit of 1,000,000 spiritual arrows, Zhong Shou paid 100 grade 7 beast crystals. However, this time Zhong Shou didn't feel any heartache, treating it as an early investment. If he was going to do it this time, he would do it big and earn it back. That night, the 40 Lingyun sect inner sect disciples that Long Rua moved over all boarded the ship. Zhong Shou originally thought that Long Rua would casually move some people to deal with the matter. However, the ones who boarded the ship in the end were 40 grade 4 and above expert. There were 6 martial ancestor realm cultivators who were really young, surprising him. The one leading them was called Jing Tao, a return to Sun Realm spirit master who didn't smile much. After boarding the ship, he didn't give Zhong Shou any face. However, he didn't make things difficult for him. On the second day, the cloud ships of Gantian Mountain and Xian Mountain combined and set sail. 1,000 warships and 800 merchant ships sailed into the Cloud Ocean Whirlpool Ladder near Psychic Island. Half of the merchant ships came from Xian Mountain City. The so-called Cloud Ocean Whirlpool Ladder was actually a giant whirlpool. The warships followed the periphery of the whirlpool and could sail under the cloud ocean. It was effortless going down, but the tough part was coming up, which was why they needed a complete floating spiritual formation and large amounts of beast crystals. The entire process was smooth sailing. The only annoying thing was that the fleets of the 3 cities were like a tail following behind them, unable to be shaken off. The moment they arrived below the cloud ocean, the illusionary scene in front of them changed. The entire area was dark and gloomy. The sea of clouds above stretched as far as the eye could see. It was extremely magnificent. However, to the region below it was a calamity. Pretty much all the light was covered, making it extremely dark. Black mist spread all about. If each cloud ship didn't have enough spirit masters, they wouldn't be able to see it. Using the spiritual formation to light up, they wouldn't be able to see anything. The plants that grew here were all weird shapes and sizes. Occasionally, one could see beasts on the ground. Most of them had red eyes, giving off a fierce aura. By the time all 1,800 cloud ships had landed, all of them had landed. Zhong Shou sent out his first order, head south. Let's go to Hailing Plains. Chapter 299. Zhu Junho and Gu Laikong, who were in charge of commanding the warships, were both slightly shocked. They knew about this hailing plains, but in the past when Gantian Mountain came down to hunt, they had never gone there. Although that region was where beasts gathered, it was too far away. Not to mention Gantian Mountain, even the other cities and hidden sects rarely went there. They originally wanted to persuade him, but thinking about the 800 energy-destroying crossbows Zhong Shou bought, for some reason they had more confidence. Moreover, such a secluded place had its benefit. At least Taoyuan City, which had been established for tens of years and had numerous cloud ships, knew very little about that place, close to nothing. Which was why they didn't say anything more, ordering the entire fleet to turn towards the south. From the Cloud Ocean Whirlpool Ladder to Hailing Plains, it would take at least 4 days. This was the reason why the various sects and powers rarely headed there to hunt beasts. Those hidden sects were still okay, but if the Donglin city powers left their elite forces outside for too long, it would cause the city to be weak and would only invite trouble. This was why when Gantian Mountain went to hunt under the Cloud Ocean, they would choose to go and return quickly. During these 4 days, Zhong Shou locked himself in his sleeping hall. He learned a lot from Xianyuan Iran about the Purify Talisman. Occasionally when he was free, he would chat and flirt with the strict and old-fashioned Iran or call Xian Yunlan over to listen to the zither. His days were really leisurely. Apart from that, a small portion of the time Zhong Shou was thinking about something. He took dozens of beast skins and wrote and drew on them. It was like a ghost drawing, but if one looked closely, one could see that it was a map. Also, the energy seed that Zhao Yanran left behind. He still didn't make up his mind to refine it. This woman was willful and unrestrained. Sometimes she was innocent, sometimes she was vicious and merciless. Her thoughts were like a heavenly steed soaring across the skies, making it hard for one to understand. Although the reverse seed cauldron technique was harmless to him. However, if it was Zhao Yanran, it wouldn't be so simple. Zhong Shou, on the other hand, didn't care. He wasn't afraid of Zhao Yanran either. Even if it was the true origin core cauldron technique, he was confident that he could win in the end. He just didn't like the feeling of falling into someone else's trap. Even if there was a day when he fell into a trap, he should be the one to see it clearly and choose to step into it himself. In fact, he didn't really like this woman's personality either. Therefore, every day, Zhong Shou only took out 2 hours to observe the object in front of him. On the 3rd day, Zhong Shou suddenly sensed something and a smile appeared on his face. Sure enough, he did something. Did he turn the tables? Interesting. The so-called origin embryo Dao seed was a finger-sized, amber-like object. It was blood-red and crystal clear. There seemed to be nothing special about it, but it was actually the blood essence in Zhao Yanran's heart. After a year, she performed a secret technique and cultivated it day in and day out. In a sense, it could even be considered a second primordial spirit. Holding it in his hand, he could feel his soul trembling. However, within it, the talisman that should have formed the reverse embryo cauldron technique had been tampered with. It left a chance for Zhao Yanran to turn the tables. If he couldn't suppress it, this woman would immediately counterattack. Sucking his blood essence and stealing his cultivation, it was really overbearing. Naturally, in this world, everything was split into yin and yang. Zhao Yanran had left herself a chance to turn the tables, but the price she had to pay was far more than a normal reversal. He could control her life and death, controlling her emotions. However, if it was a normal situation, he wouldn't care and most probably wouldn't agree. Such a situation, on the contrary, made him a little more interested. Smiling slightly, Zhong Shou didn't hesitate anymore. He absorbed the origin embryo Dao seed into his body. A portion of it directly turned into a thin blood-colored thread and merged into the true qi in his body. It circulated within his chakra meridians. The other part fell into his yuan soul. It stopped at the center of the soul ocean whirlpool and swiftly dissolved, turning into the purest soul power. It also caused the soul ocean to be dyed in a layer of blood. However, the core portion was still hanging above, tightly connected with those few true spiritual talismans. In that instance, Zhong Shou suddenly comprehended something. He could roughly sense Zhao Yanran's consciousness. It was like he could see the few true spiritual talisman seeds in Zhao Yanran's soul ocean. He could even comprehend Zhao Yanran's martial path intent. This seven-spirit monkey sect cauldron energy embryo technique is really interesting. In terms of martial path, Zhao Yanran would only benefit from it. In terms of spiritual cultivation, Zhong Shou benefited a lot. After meditating for a while, he felt as if there was oil added to his soul sea to ignite it. When he cultivated, the soul power accumulation became faster and faster. If it was said that he had cultivated with 2 souls in the past, then at this moment, he was meditating with the power of 3 souls. Adding on the 10th grade Holy Spirit level Great Sky changing meditation technique, the speed of advancement was 10 times faster than normal spirit masters. The accumulation of true qi was also extremely efficient. It made Zhong Shou feel uneasy and terrified, not daring to continue meditating like before. With such a cultivation speed, in just a few years he would be able to enter the day-wandering realm. Such an improvement was a little too quick. Before he understood the pros and cons of this, Zhong Shou didn't dare to use his strength. On the morning of the 4th day, Zhong Shou once again came to the deck. Hu Zhongyuan and the others were all here. Gu Laikong was on a high platform nearby, using a flag to command the fleet. When Zhong Shou arrived, all of their expressions were filled with righteous rage and annoyance. It seems like this Taoyuan city really wants to go against our Gantian mountain to the end. Chai Yuan's son Chai Zhou's expression was dark and sunken, suppressing the rage on his face. They have already followed us for 3 days and still aren't willing to give up. If this goes on, why don't we turn back and have a huge battle with them? Even if we die, it would be great. Although Hu Zhongyuan and the others didn't speak, their hearts were filled with worry. Only Zhong Yuan, Tan Tao, and that Ling Xian kept silent, their expressions calm, not happy nor angry. As for that Ling Yun Sec's Jing Taozhenren, he was looking around at the scenery, totally not getting involved. Zhong Shou looked out from afar and asked several times. In just a moment, he understood why these people were so angry. The cloud ships of the 3 cities didn't just follow. Any beasts that got close to their fleet would be quickly chased away or directly snatched. It caused their close to 1,000 cloud ships to only kill 10,000 beasts in 3 days. There were only a few hundred grade 4 and above. It really made one feel annoyed. Samuraim's eyes flashed. His heart was also filled with rage. However, this matter was within his expectations and wasn't worth getting angry over. Further ahead is the Guifan cave? When Gu Laikong heard that, his expression was slightly stunned, like he didn't expect Zhong Shou to be so familiar with the geography of this place. A moment later he reacted, opening his mouth to reply, "It is the Guifan cave. This area is separated by 100,000 feet tall mountain. Above is a storm. If the cloud ships go up, they would be instantly smashed. Only this natural cave can pass through and is the closest place to hailing planes." Zhong Shou's brows furrowed, thinking to himself that this cave already existed in this era. His brows furrowed. Immediately, a relaxed smile appeared on his face. "Tell all the 5-tooth ships to shoot out all the fire lightning arrows after passing through the Guifan cave. You should know what to do." When Gu Laikong heard that, he was first shocked, then he was delighted. The eyelids of Jing Tao, who was looking on from the side, jumped. Sizing up Zhong Shou like this was the first time he had met him. To use fire lightning arrows in the Guifan cave, just a few thousand of them could cause the cave to collapse, totally destroying this shortcut that had existed for thousands of years. This Zhong Shou was really vicious. However, if one looked closely, there wasn't anything wrong with this method. As such, he couldn't say anything. Gu Laikong hurriedly left to make arrangements. A moment later, Zhong Shou's ship entered a cave. This cave could be considered wide. Even the narrowest part was 2,000 feet high and 4,000 feet wide. Within, the Yin wind danced like a ghost howling, the cold air striking one. However, due to the Yin wind blowing too intensely, there weren't many evil spirits within. When all of the cloud ships had passed through, the cloud ships had all passed through. All the five-toothed giant ships equipped with 3-armed spiritual crossbows fired at the same time. In just a moment there was an explosion in the air, causing heaven and earth to shake. The entire mountain was collapsing with a loud rumble. Large pieces of giant stone totally sealed off this huge Guifan cave. All the 1,000 cloud ships instantly cheered out. At this moment, Zhong Shou could even hear the furious roar from a giant mountain. As expected, the prince had a plan. Tan Tao's eyes flashed, his face filled with joy. He knew that Zhong Shou would have a way to shake them off. However, personally seeing it was different. However, this method can at most block Yu Guanyin for 2 days. Zhong Shou nodded his head. 2 days was an optimistic estimate. To be able to block the 3 city ships for 18 hours was already something he was satisfied with. Gu Laikong and Zhu Junho knew that they couldn't waste any time. Without needing to remind them, they immediately ordered the fleet to set sail. On this night, they finally arrived at Hailing Plains. This place was flat and vast. The land was fertile, covered in a type of blue grass. The spiritual energy was also really abundant. Looking out, it was like an ocean. However, it was still an evil land. Normal plants couldn't survive here. As for the blue liquid grass below, it also contained poison. If normal people ate it, they would die in just 4 days. To hunt under the cloud ocean, the normal way would be to immediately spread out the ship. Chase away the beasts and evil spirits, surround them and use crossbows to kill them. However, at this moment, everyone knew that the 3 city ships would rush over soon. This was why they all looked towards Zhong Shou with questioning gazes. Chapter 300. Continue to head south. Let's shake off the tail behind first, Zhong Shou said as he looked into the sky. Although there were thick cloud layers above this place. However, if a spirit master did something, they could push aside the cloud ocean at a specific time and use the stars above to determine the location. Roughly identifying, Zhong Shou pointed towards the southwest corner. Head in that direction and keep going. The entire army can't use red swift bird talismans to send messages. Oh right, let people equip all the energy-destroying crossbows. The people around weren't surprised at all. This place was the outer area of Hailing Plains. After the fleet chased over, they would definitely search all around. This region was indeed not a suitable place to hunt beasts. Although there weren't many powers that came here to clear out Hailing Plains. The deeper one went, the more likely one would be surrounded by beast hordes, even grade 7 beasts. However, with the 800 energy-destroying crossbows and 300 sets of 3-armed spiritual crossbows that Zhong Shou spent a year of Gantian Mountain's income. Within the fleet, there were Zhu Junho, Gu Laikong, and Ling Feikong who were peak grade 6 experts. In times of danger, they could use secret techniques to borrow the strength of an army to reach grade 7, which was why they weren't worried. Even that Jing Taozhenren didn't retort. Who knows if he had a way to escape or if he trusted the combat strength of Gantian Mountain and Xian Mountain City. Looking at his expression, it seemed like he was only slightly shocked that Zhong Shou actually had 800 energy-destroying crossbows in his hands. Just as Jing Tao left the deck and returned to his room to cultivate, Zhong Shou waved towards Gu Laikong and summoned him in front of him. Does Commander Gu have a way to leave some clues for those fellows behind? It is best if it is accurate and let them catch up 5 days later? Gu Liekong's brows furrowed, looking at Zhong Shou in disbelief. It was with much difficulty that he used close to 10,000 fire lightning arrows to block the Taoyuan and blazing flame city ships at Mofan Cave. It was time to quickly shake them off and find a hidden place to hunt beasts. However, Zhong-Shou wanted him to leave some clues, so that the 4,000 cloud ships behind could catch up. If not for the fact that he had watched Zhong-Shou grow up, he would have died. He knew that the person in front of him was the true city lord of their Gantian mountain city. He almost thought that the new demon king of his family had been replaced by someone else. He wanted to sell them to those bastards from Taoyuan and Blazing Flame Yunxia. Gu Liekong's eyes flashed. After a long while, he regained his calm. This subject doesn't know what ruler means, but this subject doesn't dare to disobey ruler's orders. I only need to do a few things to lead the navy. 5 days, 60 hours, not a moment more, not a minute less. Zhong-Shou nodded slightly, and then secretly made a hand gesture to the cloud-soaring sect disciples in the distance. Gu Liekong immediately understood. We definitely won't let Jing Taozhenren know. Only then did Zhong-Shou smile in satisfaction. He liked such subjects, much more obedient than people like Renbua. Moreover, they were smart. In the following time, Zhong-Shou decided not to return to his sleeping quarters. He spent all his time on the deck. He could also sit and meditate here, there was no difference. 2 days later, he could see a majestic giant mountain appear in his field of vision. It was hidden in the black mist, far away from the illumination range of the Spirit Master. Only people like him who used spells to buff his eyesight could barely see the outline. However, it was this blurry image that made Zhong-Shou clench his fist. He had finally arrived at this place. He stood up from the throne that was specially made for him on the deck of the ship. Zhong-Shou strode to the head of the ship and looked out. Same. It was exactly the same as when he came here in the last life. However, this place was much safer than 10,000 years later. Without experiencing the spiritual wave explosion, this place wasn't like the future, where grade 7 beasts were densely packed. Below the cloud ships, there were at most grade 5 and 6 beasts and evil spirits. They had no way to deal with these cloud ships floating 3,000 feet in the air. Only some birds and demons that could fly could pose a threat to the fleet. However, before they could even get close, they would be shot by numerous crossbows and die on the spot. The journey was completely smooth sailing. Gu Liekong also noticed the giant mountain in the distance. He walked to the side of Zhong-Shou, frowning. "Ruler, I think this mountain range is really majestic and is hard to cross. It is best if we go around it." Zhong-Shou shook his head and didn't reply. He once again tried to discern the direction. In just a moment, he pointed 30 degrees to the southwest. "Let's go that way." Gu Liekong was helpless, thinking that it was okay to delay for a moment. The mountain in front of him didn't seem to have anything special about it. He gave an order, causing the entire fleet, thousands of cloud ships to turn around. However, just as the entire fleet had traveled about 20 miles forward, a voice suddenly rang out. Beast roars spread out from all around, as well as the sharp cries of those evil spirits and evil spirits. It rose and fell, not stopping, each wave stronger than the last. The deeper they went, the louder the roars. A moment later, not only the entire fleet, but the thousands of cloud ships were in an uproar. Even Jing Tao, who was cultivating in his room, was startled and returned to the deck. Injecting spiritual energy into his eyes, he looked around. Front, back, left, right, there were cries all around. He could also see numerous giant beasts hidden in the mist. They were surrounded by these beasts and evil spirits. "This is a beast wave?" After confirming it, Jing Tao instantly sucked in a cold breath, his face ashen white. He couldn't maintain the coldness from before, furiously questioning Zhong-Shou. "City Lord Zhong, please give me an explanation." Just now, he had roughly taken a look and noticed close to 10,000 grade 6 beasts. Who knows how many grade 5 and below beasts there were? Such a scale of beast wave probably wouldn't lack grade 7 beasts. Being surrounded, even with the secret treasure they brought this time, they wouldn't be able to easily escape. If it wasn't for the 800 energy-destroying crossbows and the fleet not being in danger, he would have immediately led the many Lingyun disciples and left. Zhenren, please calm down. Zhong Shou turned his head and signaled for Gu Laikong to continue. Following which he frowned, considering his words. Have you heard of beast tombs? Beast tomb? Jing Tao muttered, his eyes deep in thought. I heard of it before, the place where high-grade beasts are buried. Legend has it that under the cloud ocean, those beasts with intelligence aren't willing to let their corpses and beast crystals be eaten by other beasts. They aren't willing to let evil beings steal their vital energy. Which is why before they die they would choose some special areas to wait for death. After a long time, 9 of them formed the beast tomb. All of them are extremely dangerous places. Not only would many beasts be attracted by the beast crystals buried within, but even those evil beings wouldn't be able to leave. Zhenren is really knowledgeable. There is such a beast tomb in front of us. The entire deck was silent, following which numerous curious gazes looked over. Zhong Shou was helpless. He knew that this would be the case. This matter was too shocking. No matter how close people were to him, they would definitely ask about it. Originally, the place he chose wasn't this place. It was another place where he could hunt large amounts of spirit beasts. In just a month, his profits could reach millions of grade 4 beast crystals. Only because of Yu Guanyun and the others did he change his mind. Naturally, at this moment, he needed an explanation to clear up everyone's doubts. Hesitating for a moment, Zhong Shou gave out a bitter laugh. If an elder told me that there are numerous beast corpses here, would you believe me? I don't know if you believe me or not. He wasn't lying. He had indeed learned about this place from an elder. However, this person had died 7,000 years ago and recorded this place in a book. At that time, this beast tomb had already been completely emptied by others. When he said that, the surrounding people all had different expressions. The first person Jing Tao Zhenren thought of was Zhong Weiran, who had reached the Ascended Realm a few years ago and even entered the Cloud Ocean alone. As for Zhao Yanran and Xianyuan Iran, who knew that Zhong Shou had already joined Song Xingdao, the person who flashed in their minds was Wei Su. As for Hu Zhongyuan and the others, they were totally confused. However, they all knew that Zhong Shou wouldn't purposely send them to their death. Jing Tao Zhenren hesitated slightly and looked around once more. Looking closely, as expected, it was different from normal beast waves. Nearby, there were large amounts of evil beings, not below elite beasts, fighting and killing one another. These beasts and evil beings didn't seem to be controlled by high-grade elite beasts and evil spirit. They were just instinctively wary of their fleet. He couldn't help but believe 70% of it. As expected, this situation was similar to the beast tomb in the legends. Following which he heard Zhong Shou say with a weird tone, "If you don't believe me, you can rush back. Zhong Shou won't stop you." Jing Tao's eyes constricted once more. Looking closely at Zhong Shou, his face was filled with a cold smile. Using the strength of Lingyun's sect to cause Yu Guanyun and Xiongba to hesitate and not dare to attack. He also used fire lightning arrows at Mofin Cave to shake off the 4,000 cloud ships behind. He had finally experienced the methods of this prince. As expected from the rumors, although he couldn't cultivate, he was really smart. His strategy were all at the top. However, this kid wanted them to leave at such a time. What was his intention? Was he burning the bridge after crossing the river and planning to swallow all these beast crystals? That wasn't right. If he had such intentions, then he shouldn't have told him that there was a beast tomb here. Hesitating slightly, Jing Tao shook his head. Since my Lingyun sect has received the deposit from the city lord, then there is no reason for us not to try our best. How can we abandon the city lord now? No matter if it is a beast tomb or not, it is okay to enter and take a look. Zhong Shou laughed, mocking in his heart. His face didn't show any abnormalities, only ordering all the cloud ships to head forwards. As expected, after several miles, they could see the ground 3,000 feet below. Hundreds and thousands of elite beast corpses were spread out all around. There was also large amounts of energy spreading all about. Chapter 301. This place really is a beast tomb. Jing Taozhenren's hands trembled slightly like he was suppressing his surprise as he looked into the distance. Numerous beast corpses, death energy spread about. This place is definitely a beast tomb. At this moment, the entire fleet was totally silent. Many of the vassal ships that were still in an uproar also calmed down. It was obvious that there were many knowledgeable people. It is just the outer area. These beast corpses died from fighting. Zhong Shou looked at the foot of the giant mountain. The true beast tomb should be at the foot of the mountain. These beasts that died from fighting were the high-grade beasts and evil spirits that had their own intellect unlocked. They knew that they couldn't enter the beast tomb. However, they still knew the true reason why they gathered here. All the beast corpses either died from fighting or were killed on the way to the beast tomb. The beast crystals, blood and meat in their bodies were all stolen. Only bones were left as well as some useless broken fur. Zhong Ling's brow furrowed. This place doesn't have a vein, but the energy is so strong. Who knows how many evil beings died here? Everyone was silent. All the signs were similar to the beast tomb in legends. All the cloud ships didn't need Gu Laikong to rush them as they increased their speed and eagerly moved forward. The hundreds of spirit masters all increased the range of their illumination spells. In just a moment, numerous corpses and bones appeared in front of their eyes. With 10 miles in front as the boundary, numerous beast corpses and bones were piled up like mountains and oceans. With just one look, there were hundreds of thousands of them. His mother, they are all at least grade 4. Hu Zhongyuan's body trembled slightly, following which he noticed something, his pupils constricting. How is that possible? How can these beast corpses that have been piled up for hundreds of years not rot? Most beast tombs are like that. Where beast crystals gather, the spiritual energy is abundant, comparable to spiritual houses and shrines. However, the death energy is too strong and not suitable for cultivation. Jing Xiu didn't care, a bright glow flashing in his eyes. Complete beast corpses and soul stones, this is where the true value of the beast tomb lies. Looking at the scale of this place, it is at least 45,000 feet and there should be millions of beast corpses. Who knows how many grade 6 corpses there are? Then, he turned his head and said sincerely, "This place was discovered by City Lord Zhong. We shouldn't have any greedy thoughts. It's just that there are some materials here that really excite this old man. I wonder if the City Lord can give me some leeway? If the City Lord has any inconvenience, Jing Tao is willing to purchase it at market price." When Zhao Yanran heard this, she instantly sneered. "What a good, can we give in a little?" As expected of the Lingyun sect. Look at this righteous sect. Even when doing things like taking by force, they still said it in a dignified manner. On the other hand, Zhong Shou didn't seem to care at all. He was smiling brightly. Zhenren is treating me like an outsider. With the relationship between Lingyun sect and my Gantian mountain, why is there a need for that? It's impossible for me to take all the corpses here in one go. How about this? The Soaring Cloud sect could take any common rank 4 beast carcass they wanted. Grade 5 and above need to be negotiated. I will give your Lingyun sect a 10% share. Anything less than 10% was sold at a 30% discount to the market price. However, when we return, Lingyun sect needs to be in charge of protecting my fleet. Although Zhong Shou is the ruler of Gantian Mountain, he has to think for his subordinate. Only by doing things fairly can one lead the masses. What does Jing Taozhenren think? That Jing Tao's skin wasn't too thick. First, he was pierced by Zhao Yanran's words until his face turned slightly red. When he heard Zhong Shou's last sentence, he was instantly delighted. He didn't care about corpses below grade 4. Lingyun's sect didn't lack corpses, but it was better than nothing. However, 10% of the corpses above grade 5 was a huge amount. He hurriedly nodded his head. That's the right thing to do. Since my Lingyun sect has gotten benefits, naturally there is no reason for us to not get involved. City Lord is righteous, Jingtao thanks you. Zhao Yinran curled her lips in disdain, thinking to herself that this Zhong Shou was Monster King material. His smile was so fake. Following which Zhong Shou's finger pointed towards her and Xian Yunlan. The two of you are the same, 10%. The conditions are the same as Lingyun's sect. Zhao Yinran's eyes lit up, not hesitating to high-five Zhong Shou. Deal, 10%. Xian Yunlan was delighted, bowing. Ruler is so kind. Yunlan represents Qinyin sect to thank you. 10% of the beast corpses. It would be impolite for Xian Yunlan to reject. When Jing Taozhenren heard that, he felt slightly uncomfortable. However, thinking about it, be it Seven Spirit sect or Qinyin sect, their strength was only below Lingyun sect. Their relationship with Zhong Shou might be much closer. Even if it was him, he couldn't only trust Lingyun sect and could only suppress his unhappiness. Zhong Shou laughed out loud when he heard that, once again returning to his throne and sitting down. Inform the ships that everyone who saw it today will have a share. Tell them to be faster and bring those beast corpses onto the ship. After we return, we will split it according to how much effort we put in. All the soldiers will be heavily rewarded. There's one more thing I have to warn you. My Gantian mountain will kill anyone who hides anything. In just a moment the entire fleet was filled with cheers. He could faintly hear the shouts of Jun Shang is wise. Some of the city lords who followed along even rushed to Zhong Shou's ship to kneel down and thank him. All of their faces flushed red with excitement, some of them were filled with joy. They originally thought that it would be good if they could get 40 to 50% of the previous year. They might even return empty-handed with no gains at all. Who knew that Zhong Shou would give them such a huge surprise? Just the income this time would be 10 times that of previous years. They also suddenly understood why this new monster king would ask them to bring more merchant ships. At this moment, they were all filled with regret. At that time, they were filled with doubts and didn't listen to him. If they knew that this would happen, even if they risked their lives, they would have brought more ships over. That Zhu Junho felt heart-pained. Xian Mountain City might not be as strong as Gantian Mountain. However, in terms of territory control, it was far better than Zhong Shou. If they went all out, they could easily gather 1,000 merchant ships. At that time, wouldn't they be able to carry more beast corpses out? Above grade 4, be it bones or fur, they were all worth a lot. Complete and undamaged beast corpses were even more shocking. Sometimes, they were worth several times more than beast crystals. The 1,800 cloud ships pretty much traveled at full speed and charged into the beast tomb. After that, almost everyone felt a surge of pressure in their mind. Zhong Shou and the others frowned, not bothering at all. Instead, they relaxed. They knew it in their hearts. This was definitely the reason why those beasts and evil beings didn't dare to enter. From the looks of it, it should be a strand of martial intent left behind by some human expert during the ancient cloud desolate era that had not dissipated for a long time. To those beasts it might be a huge threat. However, to the human race, it was something they could rely on. Following which the entire fleet landed. A full 700,000 people. They were all busy like worker bees. They all started to move those beast corpses onto the ship. Unfortunately, they didn't bring many ships and pretty much didn't need Zhong Shou to give orders. They all consciously only moved those grade 5 and above beast corpses. As for all grade 4 ones, they only took the rarest and most precious ones. As for the rest, they only took out beast crystals, soul stones, furs and beast tendons. These things didn't take up much space. Zhong Shou and Xianyuan Iran were also wantonly collecting them. The two of them both had small heaven and earth bags on them. The scale wasn't small and they earned a lot. This caused Jing Taozhenren, Zhao Yanran and Xian Yunlan to be extremely envious. Although they also had small cosmos bags, according to the agreement from before, they could only collect the corpses of beasts under rank 4 and could only watch from the side. The scale of the beast tomb was huge and far exceeded Jing Tao's estimations. 10,000 years of accumulation wasn't a small matter. 700,000 soldiers who could at least carry 500 kilograms of weight worked together and used 2 days to move all the grade 5 and 6 beast corpses onto the ship. As for the prophets this time, due to them being too rushed, they weren't able to accurately estimate it. However, Tan Tao and the others estimated that just the beast crystals they obtained were worth at least 14 million grade 4 beast crystals. If one added in those beast corpses that could be sold for a high price, it would be even harder to calculate. Hu Zhongyuan's mind was in a trance for the entire day. This time, apart from the Gantian Mountain Zong family, their Iron Tiger race had contributed the most. After they returned, they would get 1 million grade 4 beast crystals. This was 10 times what the Iron Tiger race had in their treasury. They could develop numerous experts for the race. The other people also found it hard to calm down. Most of them had regretful looks on their faces. On the afternoon of the 5th day since they entered Hailing Plains, the huge beast tomb was finally cleared. Zhong Shou was really vicious when he did things. If he couldn't get it, then he wouldn't let others get it. All the grade 4 beast corpses that he couldn't bring away were destroyed and their value fell. Following which, Zhong Shou didn't say a word. His eyes filled with deep thought as he stood at the deepest part of the beast tomb. Looking out at the canyon in front of him, it was 9,000 feet wide. The giant mountains on both sides were made of rocks that were 10 times harder than Taigang stone. The depths of the canyon was where the martial path intent was at. The people around found it weird, but they didn't dare to make a sound and disturb Zhong Shou's thoughts. Jing Taozhenren didn't have such worries, asking curiously, "Why is your highness like that? But what's wrong here?" Since he obtained such huge benefits, Jing Tao's tone became much more polite. He called Zhong Shou your highness, treating him like a king. Zhong Shou instantly heaved a sigh of relief, thinking to himself that he finally took the initiative to ask, how difficult. However, he didn't show it on his face, only nodding his head slightly. It is indeed a little weird. I saw that the grade 6 beasts around here are all in their prime, most of them are far from death. However, why did they enter the beast tomb, risking their lives to charge into the canyon? Chapter 302. Jing Taozhenren's brows instantly furrowed as he thought about it. As expected, it was as what Zhong Shou said. More than 90% of the grade 6 beast corpses here weren't dead yet, dying from the mental impact of the martial path intent. A thought flashed across his mind. His heart couldn't help but jump intensely. Even Zhao Yanran and the others were deep in thought. I'm thinking whether or not there is some heavenly treasure here that can raise a grade 6 beast's grade, making them risk their lives like that? Legend has it that the beasts under the cloud ocean have the sharpest spiritual senses. Is that true or false? And the martial path intent here should be left by an expert who stepped into the celestial path. Legend has it that during the cloud desolate era the land was huge. However, since that calamity at the end of the cloud desolate era, at least 70% of the land sunk into the cloud ocean. Who knows, this place might have a manor left by that senior. Zhong Shou said while mocking himself, I'm just making random guesses, don't take it seriously. This place is filled with death energy. Since the matter is over, it's best if we leave early. Just as he was about to turn around, he heard Jing Tao say seriously, Your Highness, please wait. I feel that your guess is at least 80% true. I'm afraid that within this canyon, there are at least 200 grade 7 beasts. The corner of Zhong Shou's lips curled up, following which he smiled bitterly. I also think so. So what if I guessed it? With our strength, I'm afraid it will be quite dangerous if we go in. To take the treasures within, we would most probably have to disturb the martial path intent. If that's the case, it would cause a beast wave. At that time, a large half of my fleet would be destroyed. One should be content with what one has. With these 10 million grade 4 beast crystals, Zhong Shou was already satisfied. I'm not willing to risk my men. The surrounding people were originally stirred up by Jing Tao's words, their hearts surging with emotions. Even the oldest and calmest people like Zhong Ling, Zhu Junho and Ling Feikong couldn't help but feel their breathing become rushed. However, when they heard these words, it was as if a bucket of ice water was poured down from the top of their heads, causing their minds to wake up. Thinking about it carefully, they couldn't help but feel ashamed. Just like Zhong Shou said, one shouldn't be too greedy. If he were to lose his life for the sake of this imaginary treasure, the gains would not make up for the losses. Following which, the people present felt their emotions surge. Their ruler was indeed a magnanimous and wise ruler. If it was any other ambitious and ruthless person, even if they knew it was dangerous, they would most likely give it a try. He would definitely not care about the lives of his subordinate. Jing Taozhenren's breathing also stopped slightly. Frowning, he suddenly took out an item and said, "I wonder if your highness knows about this item? With this item, we only need 300 Night Wandering Realm Spirit Masters. Jing Tao is confident that we can stop those beasts for at least an hour." Before Zhong Shou spoke, Ling Feikong's expression turned solemn. "Is this the Lingyun sect's cloud-shocking illusionary token? Legend has it that the 4th-generation founder of the cloud-soaring sect refined this rank 9 spiritual weapon before leaving this world. He merged the complete cloud-shocking god-destroying sword intent into it." Jing Taozhenren didn't speak, only smiling proudly. Zhong Shou looked at the sword-shaped token in his hand and was also slightly shocked. He knew that Jing Tao brought a protective item over to protect these 40 inner sect disciples. However, he didn't expect that this fellow would actually bring such a grade of treasure. This was a surprise. At least those 4,000 ice lightning arrows could be saved. In his heart, he was extremely willing, but on his face he still hesitated. If we add in this treasure, we do have some confidence. However, for safety, why don't you hand this cloud-shocking illusionary token to my Gantian Mountain? My Gantian Mountain wants at least 80% of the items within. If we want to escape, we still need to rely on my 800 energy-destroying crossbows. That Jing Tao obviously wasn't good at bargaining, frowning and thinking for a moment before passing the sword-shaped token to Zhong Shou. He said, "Okay. However, if there are items that can upgrade, my cloud-soaring sect has the right to choose first." He didn't care much about the benefits within. Only those heavenly treasures that could help beasts advance were most probably effective for human cultivators. Zhong Shou was startled. He opened his mouth wide and shouted 80%. He was leaving space for the other party to bargain. He didn't expect Jing Tao to be so decisive. Following which, he felt the 18 cloud-shocking god-destroying sword intense seeds in his body crazily moving. Zhong Shou's heart shook. He kept the token into his sleeves without making a sound. After the discussion was settled, Zhong Shou didn't delay any longer. 15 minutes later, thousands of ships lined up in rows, moving side by side as they continued to sail into the canyon. The entrance of this place was narrow, but the space within was extremely vast. After traveling another 20 miles, the field of vision in front of the fleet expanded once more. 100,000 feet wide canyon appeared in front of everyone's eyes. However, everyone was slightly shocked in their hearts. This place didn't look like it was formed naturally. It was like someone forcefully slashed it out with a sword. Around this place, one could see many clues. Following which, they were attracted by the hundreds of beast corpses lying in the canyon. Their eyes lit up. As expected from what Jing Tao said, all of them were grade 7 beasts. There were over 400 of them. Along with the Beast Corpse Soul Stone, the value was equivalent to 1,500 Grade 7 Beast Crystals. Just the harvest within the valley was comparable to all the harvest outside of the valley. The most eye-catching thing was the center of the canyon. A lone figure sat there. Beside him was a red longsword with phoenix patterns flashing on it. The sword was shining brightly with countless cracks and was on the verge of shattering. This was also where the wisp of martial intent came from. Looking at all the Grade 7 beasts, they all had their brains pierced through by a sharp blade. It is actually a magical weapon above Grade 2, no wonder. The so-called magical weapon was actually a magical treasure, Zhong Shou exclaimed, but he didn't take a close look. Instead, he sunk into his dantian, using the power of the Cloud-Shocking Illusionary Token to activate the 18 Cloud-Shocking God-Destroying Sword Intent spiritual seeds in his body. Just now, when he received the token in his hand, the 18 Sword Intent seeds showed signs of gathering. At this moment, he purposely coordinated and as expected, they all merged together, like a sword-shape gathering in his energy ocean. The sword energy dissipated. If it wasn't for his body, he would have been as strong as a peak martial ancestor. It was enough to cause numerous wounds to his energy ocean. In his heart, he admired the Lingyun ancestor. Normally speaking, with his Xiantian realm, no matter what, he shouldn't be able to grasp the sword intent level power. However, today, not only did he grasp it, but it was also the complete Cloud-Shocking God-Destroying Sword Intent. The sword will was split into 18 seeds. At the Xuanwu ancestor realm, one could totally refine it. Once merged, it would be a complete sword intent. Originally, if the Lingyun sect disciples used their normal speed, they would have to be at least Ascended Realm to complete this step. However, they met Zhong Shou, this monster. Not only was he good at the martial path, he could refine it at Xiantian and coincidentally met this Cloud-Shocking Illusionary Token, using its power to complete the merger. However, Zhong Shou could feel that this complete Cloud-Shocking Sword Intent was once again out of his control. Who knows whether this step was a blessing or a curse? On the other side, Jing Tao didn't feel anything. His eyes were sharp as he swept around. In just a moment, his eyes were filled with surprise. Corpse harboring pinnacle sword grass. As expected, it is this item. Only to see that around that person, there were close to 1,000 sword-shaped blades of grass. They were of different ages, some thousands of years old, and some less than 1,000 years old. Zhong Shou was also jolted to his senses. Taking a look, he smiled. He had also guessed that it was this item. Where the corpse energy gathered, where the spiritual energy was the strongest, and there was also a magical weapon broken sword with the celestial martial sword intent beside it. There was at least a 90% chance that it was this corpse harboring pinnacle sword grass. This kind of spiritual grass could help beasts and human race cultivators to raise their grade. However, the most important thing was to remove the corpse energy and poison within. One had to be a top pill refiner who was good at medicinal properties. Moreover, once one relied on this item to advance, there would be some hidden problems that would affect the next advancement. Naturally, Zhong Shou didn't care much about it. However, to Jing Tao, who was at the end of his life, it was a huge hope. However, it was a little problematic to obtain these grasses. All the older sword-shaped spiritual grasses were beside the celestial martial body. Looking at the magical weapon, although it was on the verge of breaking. However, since it was able to kill so many Grade 7 beasts, one could see how strong power was. Seeing Jing Tao look over with a begging gaze, Zhong Shou smiled. Zhong Shou smiled and started to arrange the formation. 2 hours later, a full 1,000 giant ships were arranged in a fan shape outside of the canyon entrance. Pretty much all the crossbows were lined up at one side. Especially those 800 energy-destroying crossbows and all the 3-armed spiritual crossbows which were aimed at the canyon entrance, totally locking down the entrance. He also casually tossed the cloud-shocking illusionary token to Ling Feikong. The latter was startled, filled with shock. He originally thought that Zhong Shou would hand this item to Zhong Ling to manage. Did this mean that in just a few months, the new monster king who caused Gantian Mountain to prosper had regained his trust in the Eye-Wolf race? His face flushed red. Ling Feikong didn't say a word as he started to organize the spirit masters to set up the formation within the canyon. There were many spirit masters in Gantian Mountain and Xian Mountain. Along with the inner sect disciples of Lingyun's sect, there were roughly 300 of them. When the formation was formed, a large cloud mist spread out all around. It was uncertain, covering tens of miles. It also caused the martial path intent which covered this area to be slightly chaotic. Zhong Shou was shocked when he saw this. As expected, this Ling Feikong was the most talented spirit master in Gantian Mountain. The formation was strict and orderly, even he couldn't find any mistakes. He was thinking about whether or not the ships of the 3 cities had arrived. He nodded his head. Zhong Shou is already prepared. If you are confident, you can attack. If you are late, there might be changes. Jing Tao didn't hesitate. In an instant, dozens of spiritual talismans shot out. They turned into spiritual light and charged towards the broken sword. Zhong Shou took a look, only to see those dozens of spiritual talismans. They were all items that could harm the soul and target the artifact's spirit. In the next instance, the heaven and earth here suddenly shook. Chapter 303. Pretty much at the same time, outside of the beast tomb, countless elite beasts, countless ghosts, suddenly went crazy, all of them exploding. Their expressions were irritable as they crazily charged towards the entrance of the canyon. Tens of thousands of them looking out, it was like a wave hitting the shore, pretty much endless like an ocean wave. At this moment, thousands of huge battleships appeared in the sky, majestically descending from the sky. Yu Guanyin stood on the deck of the 7-toothed cloud ship, his eyes filled with shock as he looked at the beast wave below. Luckily, the beast wave was on the ground and didn't target their fleet. However, looking from afar, he still felt terrified. What is the Gantian Mountain fleet doing here? Are they here to die? Such a level of beast wave, even if we work together, we don't dare to easily offend it. The one who spoke was a red-robed middle-aged man. He wore the clothing of a Grade 2 official and was one of Yu Guanyun's subjects. Although he was joking, there was not a single person in this place who was able to laugh. Along with this giant fleet continuing forwards, in front of their eyes, numerous white beast bones appeared on the ground. Everyone on the ship held their breath. This is a beast tomb. That Gantian Mountain person actually found a beast tomb. Following this cry of surprise that came from an unknown source, the atmosphere on the deck became increasingly solemn. Yu Guanyun's expression changed. Taking in a deep breath, his expression was unusually ashen white. It is without a doubt a beast tomb. With my estimations, the scale of this place is no less than 40,000 feet. In terms of years, Gantian Mountain's gains are no less than 10 million Grade 4 beast crystals. What do the two of you think? 40,000 feet, how is it just that? Feng Nu's gaze was dark and sunken, a storm gathering in his eyes. I think it is more than 50,000 feet. This kid's methods are vicious. A large portion of the Grade 4 beast corpses were destroyed and their value was lost. Hey, this Zhong Shou, I don't know if I should say that he is skilled or that he is just too lucky. Now, the 3 of us have mustered so many people to come here, but we have to return empty-handed. Just the chase alone took a total of 7 days. Gantian Mountain, who should have gotten nothing, returned with 10 million beast crystals. This time, the 3 of us will definitely become a laughingstock when we return. Including those complete beast carcasses, the profit is estimated to be above 20 million Grade 4 beast crystals. Also within the canyon, although he didn't know what the situation was like and why it attracted so many beasts. But according to my guess, the profit is also above 10 million. Xiongba's tone was casual and calm. Looking at his tightly clenched fists, one could see that his heart was in turmoil. 20 million. You only need to take out 1/10 of that amount. It would allow Gantian Mountain to expand by millions. Recruiting numerous Xiantians, 99% of the famous Xuanwu experts in the world would be recruited under Gantian Mountain. In less than 3 years, the three of us won't have a place in Donglin Cloud Continent. The surrounding people fell silent again. Yu Guanyan's face was dark as he looked around. More than half of the people around him were nervous. Especially those envoys who originally belonged to Gantian Mountain, they all showed signs of regret. Especially Shijie City Lord Xierong, who broke all ties with Gantian Mountain a few days ago. His face was ashen white like paper. Yu Guanyan instantly felt a vengeful energy surging, knowing that this person was regretting. If he didn't betray Zhong Shou and follow his orders to follow the Gantian Mountain fleet, the profits of Shijie City would be no less than 10 times of the past. It was enough to raise the strength of Shijie City to a whole new level. However, at this moment, although he was furious, he couldn't scold them. In the end, he scoffed coldly, "What is there to worry about? No matter how much Gantian Mountain gains this time, they still need to ship the things back to truly get it." Feng Nu's eyes instantly lit up. Then, with Brother Feng's intentions, what should we do? Yu Guanyan scoffed, knowing that the two people beside him were waiting for him to say things like killing them halfway or killing them to silence them. At that time, if the sects blamed them, the two of them would at most be an accomplice. He wasn't annoyed in his heart, saying expressionlessly, "The Cloud World sects have orders that under the Cloud Ocean we can't kill one another. That Zhong Shou is cunning, inviting the Lingyun sect disciples onto the ship. It seems like he was prepared. Moreover, there are many people in your army, there are no walls in the world that don't leak. However, this time we don't need to personally attack. Don't we have these beasts to do it for us? You and I just need to lock up the exit of the canyon." Xiongba wanted to say that this level of beast wave would at most cause the Gantian Mountain fleet to suffer heavy losses. It wasn't enough to wipe them all out here. Soon after, he came to a realization and a look of admiration appeared on his face. So that's the case. The scale of this beast wave might not be enough, but you and I can add some fuel to the fire. If we plan well, we can even chase more beasts in. As long as we don't let them in, we will have a way to solve it. City Lord Yu is really smart, what a good plan. When Yu Guanyan heard that, he smiled and didn't speak anymore. However, on the 7-toothed cloud ship, the dark clouds seemed to have dissipated. The people around all smiled once more. There were even some who were filled with excitement. Following which, without needing the three of them to instruct, they waited for most of the beast wave to enter the canyon. Those thousands of cloud ships headed towards the entrance of the canyon on their own accord. Then, the ships lined up in an orderly manner, pretty much sealing up the exit of the canyon. Yu Guanyan still stood on the deck of the 7-toothed cloud ship, his expression complicated and arrogant as he looked into the canyon. This Zhong Shou was indeed the smartest person in the younger generation he had seen in his life. Unfortunately, this kid was too young and had too little experience. He had made too many mistakes. However, it was also because of this that he couldn't be left alive. Just at this moment, he saw Feng Nu at the side frowning tightly like there was something that made him frown. Yu Guanyan's brows furrowed, thinking to himself that this person was already considering the gains after this? He was filled with disdain in his heart, but on his face, he smiled. What is Brother Feng worried about? But is there anything wrong with my arrangements? Feng Nu shook his head slightly. A moment later, he said with an uncertain tone, I am thinking that after Zhong Shou sunk into the cloud ocean, he headed straight for this place. Did he know about the existence of this beast tomb? Since he knew, why did he leave so many clues along the way to lead us here? The moment he said that, not only did Yu Guanyun's expression change. Xiongba's pupils constricted and his expression changed. In the next instant, a series of powerful beast roars could be heard from behind the valley. The ground shook, numerous horse hooves sounded like thunder. It was like numerous beasts were surging over from all directions. In the sky, a patch of dark clouds pressed down. Looking out, it was actually numerous fierce birds that were pouncing over. They charged down towards the entrance of the canyon. It was actually another beast wave. Moreover, the scale was several times larger than before. At this moment, Yu Guanyun only felt that his entire body was ice cold. He suddenly raised his hand and threw out a talisman. After charging 10,000 feet, it suddenly exploded out. An eye-piercing golden light flashed and shone all about. It scattered the heavy black mist around the area, following which the people on the ship saw numerous giant beasts charging over. The ones at the front were the fastest. Their bodies were around 50 to 600 feet. Although they weren't able to form up like humans, however, they were in groups and their auras were also shocking. Yu Guanyun's eyelids suddenly jumped, a bad feeling rose up in his heart. Looking carefully behind the black fog, there was a vague figure. He only felt a few extremely strong and violent auras charge over. However, they all stopped 100,000 feet out, turning around and commanding numerous beasts to charge towards the entrance of the canyon. Grade 7. It's a Grade 7 beast. The moment Yu Guanyun stopped breathing, Feng Nu couldn't suppress the shock in his heart and took several steps back. His heart pretty much sunk to the bottom of the canyon and turned ice cold. He only felt that even when he heard news of his eldest son Feng Yu's death, it wasn't as despairing as today. The people all exchanged glances with one another, their eyes filled with shock and confusion. What kind of place was within the beast tomb? To attract so many beasts to gather? What did Zhong Shou do to attract over tens of these Grade 7 beasts that couldn't be easily seen? Was the change this time within Zhong Shou's expectations? After a short while, Xiongba's heart-breaking roar rang out, "Move aside! Why aren't all of you moving aside?" The tens of thousands of workers in charge of controlling the ships were like they had just woken up from a dream. The thousands of cloud ships blocking the canyon all moved to the side towards the two sides of the ancient path. It was chaotic as they collided with one another. That flood of beasts had already charged over and was close to the canyon entrance. The hundreds of cloud ships blocking at the bottom were instantly smashed into pieces by these numerous Grade 6 beasts. Within the canyon, just as the dozens of spiritual talismans were 100 feet close, that fiery red long sword suddenly shook. Then, a red light swept out. In an instant, the dozen talismans were all smashed into pieces. However, the sword body was slightly crying and trembling, like it was heavily injured by this spiritual talisman that specialized in damaging the soul. It was filled with rage, the sword shadow spun and charged into the clouds, following which it was like a flame river. It slashed down from the sky. Halfway there was a sharp chong sound. A sword shadow that was like ice and mist pierced out from the clouds in the sky and clashed with the phoenix pattern longsword in the air. In the next instance, that cloud-shocking god-destroying sword formed from pure spiritual energy and soul power was smashed into pieces. Ling Feikong, who was in charge of the spiritual formation, just scoffed. His face was slightly ashen white before it returned back to normal. At the most crucial moment, it caused the 300 spirit masters to cut off their soul power, cutting off their tails to survive. Which was why, although they were lightly injured, they were fine. Chapter 304. That phoenix-patterned sword shattered the ice mist sword shadow. The sword attack was slightly blocked before it recovered back to its previous state, where flames shot out in all directions, burning the heaven and destroying the earth. In the next instance, Zhu Junho and Zhong Gang both rose up. The former was obviously experienced, holding a large halberd in his hand, the moment he jumped up into the air. The aura of the hundreds of thousands of Xian mountain soldiers merged into one. The halberd aura exploded, the energy glow charging thousands of feet. Although Zhong Gang's cultivation was a grade lower, in terms of the martial path, he was better. His control of the strength of the entire army was much more casual and casual. Numerous lightning glows exploded out from around his body and gathered at the tip of the spear. The spear glow and halberd energy struck the phoenix-patterned sword at the same time. Just a slight contact caused the sword attack to pause in the air before it swiftly retreated. However, Zhong Gang and Zhu Juanho's faces were ashen white as they retreated explosively. Blood seeped out from the corner of their lips. At this moment, numerous lightning sounds spread out from the mouth of the canyon. Who knows how many beasts dashed over and smashed into the thick mist, only to see numerous thin sword shadows appearing and disappearing under Ling Feikong's control. They didn't need to act like they were slashing out. They just needed to hang in the air and use the momentum of those beasts to heavily injure them. Those 1,000 cloud ships also had hundreds of thousands of crossbows which shot out. Using the cloud-shocking illusionary token along with the arrow rain, they managed to slightly block the terrifying beast wave. However, the people beside the corpse of the celestial martial expert didn't have time to pay attention to what was happening at the mouth of the canyon. They all looked nervously at the fiery red phoenix-patterned longsword. That Jing Taozhenren laughed out loud. "Your Highness really is a trustworthy person, I thank you." Suddenly, a flying shuttle drilled out from his sleeves and shot upwards. It was obvious that Jing Tao had prepared for a long time. This flying shuttle was really strong. Just as it charged into the air, it caused 10,000 feet of land to freeze. The strength was no less than that of the fiery red sword shadow. The expressions of Zhong Shou and Zhao Yanran instantly changed. A grade 7 spiritual artifact, no wonder Jing Taozhenren was always so confident. Even though he knew that it would not be easy to shatter this extraordinarily powerful phoenix-patterned sword. Since he was the first to make a move, he would have to bear the greatest risk, but he was still not worried. Although there was a difference of 4 grades between a 7th grade spirit artifact and a 2nd grade magic artifact. However, if this magical treasure was already on the verge of breaking, then the situation would naturally be different. In the next instant, there was another loud clang in the air. All of a sudden, the entire world began to ripple. As expected, the ice-blue shuttle was knocked back by the sword shadow. However, in the next instant, this 7th grade spiritual artifact suddenly exploded. Large amounts of ice power exploded out, causing the flame sword light to tremble intensely. This Jing Tao was indeed ruthless. He had actually directly detonated this incomparably precious rank 7 spiritual weapon. When the icy mist dissipated, it was evaporated by the flames. Everyone also activated their eyesight and looked carefully, only to see that the phoenix-patterned longsword was sent flying 1,000 feet away by the explosion of the grade 7 spiritual artifact. The entire sword body actually didn't shatter, only being covered in a layer of white frost. Jing Taozhenren's expression was first one of shock, but then his heart relaxed. He knew that this sword was already at the end of its tether. As long as he slightly increased his strength, he could totally shatter it. Sacrificing this grade 7 spiritual artifact had caused this flame sword to be heavily damaged once more. In the next instant, a body flashed across the air. It was Gu Laikong, who had accumulated strength and was waiting to strike. He suddenly slashed out with his knife. A vast knife glowed directly slashing onto the body of the phoenix-patterned longsword. The two of them were at a standstill, but moments later there was a sharp cry. This grade 2 magical weapon was finally smashed into pieces. However, the knife attack didn't stop, like it was uncontrollable as it continued to slash downward. Although it successfully retracted at the last moment when it touched the ground. it still managed to slice a corpse-harboring pinnacle sword grass into pieces. With a soft, bang sound, countless grayish-white death chi quickly spread out. Zhong Shou raised his eyebrows slightly. He immediately pulled Iran Chu Shui, who was beside him, and retreated several hundred feet away. The rest of the people reacted quickly and leaped away one after another. They all recognized that this was the densest aura of death. If they came into contact with it, their lifespan would be reduced at best, and they would die at worst. All living beings would perish. However, there were no other living beings here aside from the 100 or so corpse-harboring sword grass. At the same time, a refreshing fragrance spread out and quickly drifted through the air. Zhong Shou only took a light sniff, and he felt the true qi in his body become restless. It was as if the smell alone was enough to increase his cultivation. At the same time, he felt a trace of poison seeping into his body. However, it was instantly blown apart by the world-shocking true energy. This spiral true qi was helpless against the wine, but it was totally effective against all sorts of poisons. Although that Jing Taozhenren's eyes were filled with regret, he didn't dare to say anything. However, he was more flustered and exasperated. Right away, he hollered furiously at Gu Laikong, "Look at what you did! You scattered this corpse-harboring sword grass to attract all the beasts in hailing plains before you are willing to stop?" Following which, they looked towards the canyon entrance in terror. Only to see that after those beasts smelled the fragrance, their eyes turned red and they became even crazier. The faces of the people here were all ashen white. All of a sudden, they didn't have time to bother about the corpse of that celestial path expert. They all looked towards where the beasts were surging. At this moment there were thousands of cloud ships, hundreds of thousands of crossbows, along with the cloud-shocking illusionary token. It was like an invisible dam was blocking the attacks of those beasts. However, at this moment it was obviously on the verge of collapsing. Zhu Junho frowned slightly. Before this, he noticed that Gu Liekong's actions weren't right. He probably did many things along the way. At this moment, his actions were even more suspicious. However, after all, this person was a direct subordinate of Zhong Shou, so it wasn't good for him to say it out loud. Gu Laikong was really straightforward, laughing bitterly and directly asking for forgiveness from Zhong Shou. "I was careless and caused my Gantian mountain soldiers to be in danger. Ruler, please punish me." Zhong Shou generously waved his hand. "People make mistakes, horses stumble too. Gu Qing destroyed his sword heart, so what crime did I commit? Luckily, the terrain here is special. Even if there is a huge beast wave, we can block it." Jing Taozhenren was instantly speechless, thinking to himself that he was really generous. Such a crime, and he actually waved his hand and said that everything was fine. However, looking closely at the terrain here, as Zhong Shou said, it was the most suitable place to block the enemy. However, he still couldn't calm down, saying solemnly, "Your Highness, my cloud-shocking illusionary token can at most be used for an hour and can only block grade 6 beasts. The scent of this corpse-harboring sword grass will definitely attract grade 7 beast marks. Your Highness, please use the energy-destroying crossbows." Energy-destroying crossbows? When Zhong Shou heard that, what everyone didn't expect was that he hesitated. "It doesn't seem appropriate." That Jing Taozhenren was instantly furious, unable to understand. It was a race against time, and it was a critical moment. Zhong Shou actually had time to hesitate. What an indecisive person. Who knows what this person was thinking? Following which a thought rose up in his heart. Was this Zhong Shou worried that the energy-destroying crossbows consumed too much? After all, such a special spiritual artifact needed a grade 6 beast crystal just once. He couldn't help but feel disdain. Originally, his high evaluation of Zhong Shou had dropped by a few grades. In the end, he was from the monster race. How petty! However, at this moment, he still needed to rely on Zhong Shou's strength. Jing Taozhenren said solemnly, What is inappropriate? Your Highness, if you don't use the energy-destroying crossbows now, you won't have a chance to. You and I will all die without a burial place. If your Highness can't bear to part with those beast crystals, my Lingyun sect can help you take half of it. Zhong Shou's face was still filled with hesitation. It isn't that I can't bear to part with the beast crystals, but just now I heard someone scolding me from outside. It wouldn't be good if I accidentally hurt them. When Jing Taozhenren heard that, he wanted to slap Zhong Shou's face. As a return to Sun Realm Spirit Master, he didn't hear anything. The many Xuanwu experts nearby also didn't notice anything. You Zhong Shou have no martial path or spiritual cultivation. Where did you hear that from? He couldn't take it anymore and scolded out, What accidental injury? Your Highness, you are so dumb. At this time, even if the Emperor came, he wouldn't bother. Your Highness, please give the order. I will take all responsibility. Zhong Shou was waiting for those words, laughing out loud. He said towards Gu Laikong, Did you hear what Jing Taozhenren said? Tell the ships to not be reluctant to use the beast crystals and arrows. Saving our lives is more important. Those 800 energy-destroying crossbows, don't fire them all at once, split them into 3 parts. Just fire them one after another. After he finished speaking, he secretly winked at Gu Laikong. Gu Laikong couldn't take it anymore and wanted to laugh out loud. At this moment, he roughly guessed Zhong Shou's rough plan. To draw over all the 4,000 cloud ships from Taoyuan City. Not only would they be used as shields to block the second wave of beasts, who knows how many people would be able to survive under the attacks of these 800 energy-destroying crossbows. He was really cunning to the extreme, however. He suppressed his laughter, solemnly bowing towards Zhong Shou. Gu Laikong won't let the ruler down. His voice was solemn, filled with respect. At this moment, Gu Laikong was totally convinced by this new ruler of Gantian Mountain. In the next instance, Gu Laikong jumped up and headed right for Zhong Shou's ship. Zhong Shou smiled slightly, following which he smiled towards Jing Taozhenren. Based on the agreement, you have the priority to choose. You can take 20% of the items here. Jing Tao didn't reject, taking 20 stalks from the corpse harboring pinnacle sword grass. Although he had put in a lot of effort, even using a grade 7 spiritual artifact. However, after all, the one who had the most use was Zhong Shou's side. In the end, he wasn't so thick-skinned as to take all the older ones. He only gave himself a portion based on the value. Just at that moment, the entire canyon suddenly lit up with a blazing glow, following which the entire heaven and earth shook once more. Chapter 306. That Zhong Shou is really bold, plotting against us under the cloud ocean. Isn't he afraid that the sects will attack him in the future? The one who spoke was Lin Ji. His expression was filled with rage, his eyes filled with rage. However, the people around looked over like they were looking at an idiot. Idiot? I, Feng Nu, have never seen such a dumb person like you. We are tens of miles away and that Zhong Shou didn't even meet us. At that time, he could easily say that he didn't see us. Just one sentence. Why would the 3 city warships appear here at such a time, and it would make one speechless? Even if we inform the sects, what's the use? Could it be that they would still stand up for us? He invited the Lingyun sect disciples onto the ship. His intentions are really unforgivable. The more Feng Nu said, the colder his heart felt. Before this, he thought that Zhong Shou spent a large amount of money to invite Lingyun sect people onto the ship to prevent them from attacking under the cloud ocean. However, thinking about it now, he couldn't help but feel a chill down his spine. Since Psychic Island, Zhong Shou had schemed to dig a giant hole for them. Those Lingyun sect inner sect disciples were the witnesses that Zhong Shou used to get away with his crimes. Brother Feng's words are wrong. You and I are indeed in the wrong in today's matter, but we are not in the wrong. However, we still have to announce this matter to the world, to let the people of the cloud world know how vicious this kid is." Xiongba scoffed coldly, his wheel-sized eyes staring forwards. "However, the important thing is to break out. No matter what price we have to pay, we have to charge out." The moment he said that, Yu Guanyun and the others instantly frowned and looked around. The beasts within the canyon were mostly cleared out by the energy-destroying crossbows. The rest of them were smart enough to hide in the corners. Although there were many beasts who charged into the canyon under the orders of the Grade 7 beast, there were still many beasts. However, in just tens of miles they were all killed. Looking at the densely packed destructive light that would shine in the canyon every 20 breaths, it made everyone's head feel numb. They would rather face the beast tide in front of them than endure the bombardment of the energy-destroying crossbows and walk into the valley. All the cloud ships here were huge and didn't have the agility of elite beasts. When facing these energy-extinguishing crossbows, they would probably be blasted into dregs before they could even charge into the gorge. Unless they could charge into a visible distance, that Zhong Shou would definitely not be kind enough to stop the energy-destroying crossbow. However, the beast horde in front of them was equally terrifying. Millions of beasts gathered here. Just Grade 6 alone, there were 30,000 of them. Apart from that, there were also those faintly discernible Rank 7 experts, which made them feel even more despair. At this moment, he was in a dilemma. Fuck that Zhong Shou's 8 generations of ancestors. Only that dog shit Zhong Weiren could give birth to such a cunning kid. This pair of father and son, neither of them is easy to deal with. Xiongba fiercely punched the railing, smashing the wooden railing at the head of the ship into pieces. If it was in the past, seeing Xiongba destroy his beloved ship, Yu Guanyun would definitely be unhappy. However, at this moment, he didn't bother about it. His face sunk down and he didn't say a word. Following which, he heard Xiongba's tone suddenly change, suddenly becoming high-pitched. "Fuck! They are actually Grade 7 wind-breaking eagles. 3 at a time." He didn't hesitate to jump up from the deck of the seven-toothed giant ship towards a nearby ship. Feng Nu's pupils constricted. He also jumped up and swiftly fled. Yu Guanyun looked up, only to see that there were 3 black dots in the clouds, bringing with them a violent wind as they fell. At this moment, his heart was twisted to the extreme. Blood seeped out from the corner of his lips. However, at this moment, he didn't dare to hesitate, grabbing the few people beside him, his body flashing as he flew hundreds of feet away. In the next instance, 3 giant birds, 1,000 feet in size, smashed into the seven-toothed giant ship. They directly pierced through this seemingly indestructible giant ship, forming 3 giant holes. Following which numerous sharp wind blades danced crazily, riddling this seven-toothed giant ship with thousands of holes. Yu Guanyun couldn't help but look back, following which he was unable to suppress the depression in his chest. He spat out a mouthful of black blood, his expression extremely vicious. "Zhong Shou, Yu Guanyun, will definitely not let you off." In his life, he had never hated a person as much as he did today. Even when Zhong Weiran ruled the 9 provinces and was at his peak, he didn't feel like this. Only this Zhong Shou made him hate him to the extreme. It also hurt to the bone. Outside, the cloud ships of Taoyuan and Blazing Flame City were in deep trouble. Zhong Shou was sitting cross-legged within the canyon, which could be considered peaceful, calmly looking at the pieces of the phoenix-patterned sword in his hand. Grade 2 magical weapon, naturally the material was not needed. Even after it was broken, as long as he asked an expert blacksmith to refine it, he would be able to create a high-grade spiritual artifact. However, Zhong Shou's current thoughts weren't here. Instead, he was thinking about how to extract the artifact's spirit and let it recover, for it to last for 10,000 years and not dissipate, even merging the martial path intent of its master into the sword. A sword spirit of such a grade was really rare. Other people didn't know its value, Jing Tao didn't know either. However, he knew that such a mutated sword spirit that could grow was something that celestial realm and even god realm experts would crave for. Be it to be used as a protector beast or to reforge a sword, it was the best. In his eyes, the magical weapon pieces in his hand were even more valuable than that heaven and earth bag. Using his spiritual sense to investigate, the outcome made him really excited. Although this sword was broken, the sword spirit's soul was greatly damaged. However, it still hadn't totally disappeared. As long as he gathered some spiritual items and used the few secret techniques in his memory, he could extract the artifact spirit from within. What was most difficult was how to wipe away the memories of the sword spirit as well as the mark left by the previous master. For this sword to be able to protect the body for 10,000 years, it was obvious that it was deeply attached to its master. Even when it was on the verge of dissipating, it wasn't willing to find a way to survive on its own. Actually, it could directly inherit it. However, Zhong Shou couldn't be at ease with this method, feeling that it still belonged to someone else. Just as he was frowning in deep thought, Xianyuan Iren safely obtained the last corpse harboring pinnacle sword grass. Her gaze was complicated as she looked at Zhong Shou. Little Shou, I feel that you are becoming more and more cunning. Zhong Shou smiled when he heard that. He knew that this matter couldn't be hidden from the righteous and benevolent girl who followed him day and night. He didn't deny it, asking instead, "Then, are my actions against the righteous path?" "No, those people asked for it and can't blame others." Xianyuan Iren shook her head, her expression was a little complicated. Between enemy countries there is no need to fight. Naturally, there is no need to mention the word righteous. If one is righteous and benevolent to the enemy country, then one owes one's own people. However, once war breaks out and we kill, it isn't a good thing. That's true. Zhong Shou's brows rose up. He didn't expect his fiancée to see through things so clearly. All the countries fought for the sake of profit. What righteousness and name, they were all fake. To be stubborn about righteousness and benevolence, one was a fool. So, what your husband believes in is that short pain is better than long pain. Rather than letting my people cry, why not let the enemy country cry? He suddenly reached out and snatched the corpse harboring pinnacle sword grass from Xianyuan Iren's hand. Then, he tossed it to a place where no one was around. "Uncle Zhu, please attack." Zhu Junho was originally holding a halberd in his hand, looking at the entrance of the canyon with a focused expression. As long as there were any fish that escaped the net and charged in, they could immediately order the thousands of soldiers who were waiting at the side to kill them. When he heard that, he turned his head in shock. When he saw the corpse harboring pinnacle sword grass in midair, he was startled. Then, he came back to his senses, his eyes shining brightly. "Yes, Lord." Casually waving the halberd, a blade light charged up and smashed that corpse harboring pinnacle sword grass into pieces. Similar to before, first, thick death energy spread out. Then, there was the fragrance of medicine. It caused the people in the canyon to be pumped up. Especially those spirit masters who felt that the soul power they used up was instantly recovered by a large half. Xianyuan Iren was instantly stunned on the spot. Jing Tao Zhenren in the distance was also at a loss, looking at the tomb in disbelief. Then, his old face twisted. "City Lord Zong? Please give me an explanation." His tone wasn't as warm as before, instead, it was filled with a cold intent. However, when Zhong Shou heard that, he was really calm, not nervous or ashamed at all. "Zhong Shou, please calm down. Zhong Shou wants us to be able to leave this place as soon as possible." Jing Tao Zhenren was instantly stunned once more. Thinking to himself, what did destroying the corpse harboring pinnacle sword grass have to do with them leaving? The fragrance of the medicine would only stimulate the beasts outside and make them even crazier. Following this, Jing Tao Zhenren's heart moved, his eyes filled with comprehension. When Zhong Shou saw that, he sighed, his face filled with respect. You really are a wise person. It seems like you don't need me to explain. If you don't cause the beasts outside to lose their minds and lead them to attack, you will try to reduce their numbers. You and I can only be trapped here for who knows how long before we can leave. Following this, he laughed bitterly, his face filled with helplessness. Moreover, the grade 6 beast crystals here are limited. Those words were filled with deep emotions, causing Jing Taozhenren's face to turn red. Thinking about it, he did misunderstand Zhong Shou. Thinking about it carefully, 800 energy-destroying crossbows, one shot was 800 grade 6 beast crystals. Indeed, it was not something that an ordinary mortal force could afford to consume. Even the rich Lingyun sect wouldn't be able to afford it. Zhong Shou destroying a corpse harboring pinnacle sword grass was probably because he had no choice. Zhao Yinran, who was not far away, shuddered when she heard this. She looked on speechlessly. Finally, he sighed, Senior Sister Xian, if it's possible, it's best that you don't offend this fellow for the rest of your life. They were planning to force the cloud ships of the 3 cities into a dead end. Chapter 307. The 800 elemental extinguishing crossbows shot for an entire 2 hours before gradually calming down. The cannon barrel that was crafted with precious spiritual gold was so hot that it turned red. Even Gu Laikong had purposely lowered the frequency of firing after the peak of the beast wave. However, the grade 6 beast crystals that were used up still reached 50,000. They pretty much used up all the grade 6 beast crystals they obtained from the beast tomb. They even sacrificed over 200 grade 7 beast crystals before they managed to survive. However, the results were great. The beast wave that was surging relentlessly had calmed down. Within the canyon, beast corpses were strewn all over. Actually, most of the beasts were directly smashed into dust by the energy-destroying crossbows. However, there were still many that were left behind. When the 1800 cloud ships under Zhong Shou passed out of the canyon perfectly fine, Zhong Shou's eyes lit up. They only felt that this place was filled with a bloody stench. The death energy was also much thicker. There were also threads of cold energy which caused one's body to feel cold. Zhong Shou was still standing on his deck, his face filled with pain. It was indeed worth feeling heart-pained. Close to 50,000 grade 6 beast crystals were used up, which was equivalent to 500 grade 7 beast crystals or 5 million grade 4 beast crystals. Just to calculate those 4,000 cloud ships, whose total value wasn't even close, it was indeed a little of a loss. Chai Yuan's son Chai Zhou didn't suspect him, persuading him from the side, ruler doesn't need to do that. If he wanted to escape safely, he would have to expend a lot of energy. Actually, Argantian Mountain still profited this time. Although most of the beast corpses below are damaged, grade 4 and above beast crystals are tough and not easy to break. If we clean them up, I think we can at least gather 3 million. If we are lucky, not only will we not lose, but we will also earn. Zhao Yinran and Xian Yunlan at the side were speechless. Gu Laikong, Zhu Junho, and Ling Feikong all looked at Chai Zhou with pity in their eyes. Look at how naive this kid is. Till now he still doesn't know. Didn't he notice that the ruler's eyes were smiling? Although Hu Zhongyuan didn't know what the situation was, he felt that it wasn't right. It wasn't that he was smarter than Chai Yuan. Instead, he already knew Zhong Shou's temperament. He was obviously faking it. Looking at her face, where was the slightest bit of heartache? This time, it was my greed that caused your highness to exhaust so much. Jing Taozhenren also sighed, his white eyebrows slightly creased. It's a pity that Jing Tao's position in the sect is too low, otherwise I would definitely compensate your highness for your loss. This time, the old Taoist really felt bad. How about I, Jing Tao, owe your highness a favor today? Zhong Shou's heart skipped a beat when he heard this. He knew that he had gone overboard with his acting. Pretending to be innocent after getting a bargain was the most detestable kind. He waved his sleeves and smiled. You don't have to do that. Actually, Zhong Shou should be the one thanking the Taoist master. If it wasn't for the cloud-shocking illusory token that the immortal lent me, how could I, Zhong Shou, obtain the treasure left behind by that senior? Actually, just one Qiankuan pouch is more than enough to cover the losses this time. Jing Taozhenren nodded his head slightly. He liked Zhong Shou more and more. Thinking back to what Long Ruo said before, he couldn't help but scoff. This highness was kind and intelligent, generous and upright. How was he as bad as Long Ruo said? It was said that this highness tried to join Lingyun's sect a few months ago, but Long Ruo rejected him. It seemed like he had a deep prejudice against him. He was prejudiced. Just as he was thinking about that, the black mist in front of him chased away the light. Moments later, numerous ship wreckage appeared in front of their eyes. Looking out, it was densely packed, who knows how many of them, pretty much blocking the entire canyon entrance. Thus, the entire squadron, the 1,000 to 800 cloud ships, were totally silent. Moments later, there were buzzing noises. I recognize it, that is the cloud flag of Taoyuan City. These ships were the cloud ships of the 3 cities of Taoyuan and Blazing Flame. Didn't your highness shake them off? Why would they appear here? It's terrible. I'm afraid the number of wrecked ships is more than 3,000. Didn't they all get wiped out here? Isn't that Yu Guanyun's ship? It was said that the 7-tooth ship that cost 80,000 grade 7 beast crystals was destroyed just like that? Hu Zhongyuan and Chai Zhou were instantly silent. No matter how dumb the two of them were, they roughly understood what was going on. The cloud ships of the 3 cities were all destroyed here, and it definitely had something to do with Zhong Shou. Zhong Yuan smiled. He wasn't the first to notice, but he definitely wasn't the last to know. Jing Taozhenren's face was alternating between green and white. His heart skipped a beat. In an instant, countless images flashed through his mind and were pieced together. All of a sudden, he didn't know what to do. He also wasn't sure whether or not he fell into a trap. Actually, even if he was used by Zhong Shou, it wasn't much. He had been through numerous storms and the matter in front of him wasn't much. He could take such a blow. The key was that after today, the situation west of Donglin would be totally out of balance. They got an entire beast tomb for no reason, but the squadron of the 3 cities had pretty much lost everything here. Millions of elite soldiers were lost. The situation west of Donglin Cloud Continent was about to change. Such a responsibility wasn't something Jing Tao could take up. Zhong Shou was also silent as he looked below. After a long while, seeing Jing Taozhenren slowly come back to his senses, he asked with a slightly terrified expression, "Zhenren, this should be the Taoyuan City squadron. Why don't we wait? What should we do?" Jing Taozhenren's frustration instantly rose up to his throat and he nearly scolded out. Looking at the ships below, 60% of them were destroyed by the attacks of the elite beasts and 40% were directly destroyed by the energy-destroying crossbows. Using this battle to deal with his most trusted enemy, what else did Zhong Shou want? However, the moment he scolded out, Jing Tao forcefully suppressed it. So what if he scolded out? He was the one who gave the orders and even said that he would take responsibility for it. Zhong Shou also reminded him before and even suggested to enter the canyon to search for the corpse harboring sword spirit grass. No matter how he looked at it, it had nothing to do with Zhong Shou. Moreover, he did obtain a lot of benefits from it. He couldn't help but take in a deep breath. Jing Taozhenren's face was expressionless. Today's matter has nothing to do with City Lord Zhong. Looking at the situation here, all the beasts and evil spirits within 200 miles of the beast tomb have been wiped out. The essence of Hailing Plains has all been wiped out. Within 100 years, there won't be any more beasts or evil spirits that can advance to grade 7. City Lord has done a lot of good this time. As for the squadrons of the 3 cities, they can't blame your highness. During a battle, it is unavoidable to injure one another. In the future, if anyone asks, I will testify for you. Zhong Shou smiled. He was waiting for Jing Tao to say those words. However, looking at the solemn expression on the old man's face, he couldn't help but feel sad. Actually, this person's personality wasn't bad. Unfortunately, this time he was sent by Long Rua to board his ship. The taste of bullying an honest person wasn't good. He felt like he was a bad person. After saying those few words, Jing Taozhenren didn't have the face to continue to stay on the deck. He directly waved his sleeves and stepped into the cabin door. Zhao Yinren finally burst out laughing, looking at Zhong Shou with a weird expression. You seem to be pitying him? I really don't understand your personality. He only has himself to blame for this because of his greed. How can he blame others? Zhong Shou shook his head slightly. He knew that Zhao Yanran was already using the spiritual seed to pry into his thoughts. As for what he was thinking about, naturally she wouldn't know. However, she could roughly guess his mood. She was too lazy to bother, directly saying to Zhu Junho and Gu Laikong, send people to clean up the canyon. See if those 3 people are dead or not. The 2 of them bowed and accepted the order. However, the entire fleet started to get busy like worker bees. Blood flowed like a river here. The stench of blood filled their nostrils. However, the hundreds of thousands of soldiers in charge of cleaning up were all pumped up. They were filled with energy and weren't unwilling at all. Especially Hu Zhongyuan and the others who were all excited and high-spirited. At this moment, anyone who didn't have eyes would know that Taoyuan, Blazing Flame, and Yunxia City had suffered heavy losses. Who knows how much compensation they would have to pay for the loss of 2 million elite soldiers. The loss of combat strength would take several years to make up for. There were also those 4,000 cloud ships which were the treasures of the cities. After the losses, to rebuild would take several months, even half a year. This also meant that within a year, these 3 cities along with their subordinate cities wouldn't be able to hunt under the Cloud Ocean. Taoyuan City that started from the Cloud Ocean trade was still okay. However, Blazing Flame and Yunxia City wouldn't be able to recover within a year. The hearts of the people would scatter and the losses would be immeasurable. Before this, when they were brought here, they thought that Zhong Shou was only here for the beast tomb. However, they didn't expect that Zhong Shou's true goal was to plot against the 4,000 cloud ships that followed behind. The bad situation that Gantian Mountain was facing was pretty much turned around in a night. Now, it was these 3 cities that had to be terrified of Gantian Mountain City. Forget about those ignorant and low-level soldiers who didn't know what was going on. The higher-ups who were able to see a little of the secrets looked at Zhong Shou with respect and admiration. With such a smart ruler, Gantian Mountain would be able to rise up once more. No. At this moment, their Gantian Mountain strength was no weaker than when Zhong Weiran was alive. At this moment, the city lords who had followed over were all in a daze, as if they were in a dream. They rushed over this time with the thought of living and dying together with Gantian Mountain. They felt that it would be good if they could gain something to allow them to continue holding on. Who knew? This time, the arrogant Taoyuan 3 cities would end up like this? On the contrary, they would be able to return with a full load? This new monster king who didn't look much older than 14 could really do whatever he wanted with a flip of his hand. This time, the 3 powers had lost 4,000 cloud ship. Once this news spread out, even the entire Donglin Cloud continent situation would change. Chapter 308. The fleet was delayed for another 2 days in the canyon before they set off again. 2 days of clearing out the items from the Corpse Mountain and Blood Ocean. The total value was as Chai Zhou had estimated, reaching 3.6 million grade 4 beast crystals. As for the losses of the 3 cities of Taoyuan, it was also calculated. A total of 3,800 cloud ships sunk, less than 10% of them survived. Based on a three-tooth cloud ship, it could carry at least 400 soldiers. At least 1.4 million elite soldiers were slaughtered by the beasts. The only thing that made everyone feel pity was that Yu Guanyun, Feng Nu, and Xiong Ba were nowhere to be seen. Who knows if they were alive or dead, whether or not they managed to escape. However, Zhong Shou didn't care much. He didn't hope that his plan would be able to keep the three of them. As the lord of a city and also controlling several provinces of land, he definitely had some trump cards. Even if he couldn't win against those grade 7 beasts, it wasn't a problem for him to let them escape. After leaving the beast tomb that was swept clean, the group of ships didn't go anywhere else. At this moment, the space of each ship was filled with precious beast corpse materials. Just as they were worried that a long night would cause problems, they were afraid that something would happen, which was why everyone had the same opinion, that they weren't willing to waste any more time under the cloud ocean. Zhong Shou was also a little worried that Yu Guanyun and the others would have some tricks up their sleeves when they escaped. These few people were all crafty and cunning people. They were just careless, which was why they fell into his trap. When they reacted, they might have a way to fight back, which was why they followed their wishes and swiftly returned. Actually, when they were below the cloud ocean, apart from hunting beasts, they could also use it to train troops. It allowed the soldiers under them to be trained in life and death battles. Every year, numerous people would advance because of this. However, at this moment, they obviously didn't have the time nor the conditions. Especially when the arrows that were sent over were all used up. The grain was also thrown away to make more space to store beast corpses. When they returned, the ships were several times sunk. However, their speed didn't slow down by much. All the ships used beast crystals without caring about consumption to activate the floating spiritual formation to increase their speed. Zhong Shou also didn't stay in his own palace. That place had already been occupied by Xianyuan Iran. He had spent a lot of money to renovate the palace, and now it had become Xianyuan Iran's pill room. In the beast tomb, they obtained numerous materials that even the pill fountain sect didn't have. This caused Xianyuan Iran to be impatient and want to try to refine some extremely rare spiritual pills. That place was filled with smoke the entire day, but Xianyuan Iran didn't allow him to watch from the side to avoid being distracted. Therefore, Zhong Shou could only stay on the deck for the whole day. Under the huge umbrella, Zhong Shou gritted his teeth with a crack sound. He bit down on a longan-sized pill in his mouth and crushed it into powder. Instantly, he felt a refreshing sweetness in his mouth. There was also a rich fragrance that seeped into his nose. It caused Zhong Shou to be totally intoxicated, following which his soul power shook. His mind was unusually vigorous. Excited and awake, Zhong Shou's mind merged these two totally abnormal states into one. Looking at the few soul stones in his hand, his gaze became even sharper. It was like he could see through the structure and flaws of the beast soul within. This was a beast soul stone that was specially chosen out of numerous soul stones, the broken mountain bears. At this moment, Zhong Shou was prepared to raise the grade of his protector beast known as Little Monster. When Little Monster was alive, it was grade 6. After it was refined into a spirit beast, it dropped to grade 5. It was a demon eye silver bear that mutated from the broken mountain bear. What Zhong Shou needed to do now was to choose suitable beast soul stones and use a secret technique to make it swallow. Naturally, in terms of quantity, there was a requirement. Soul stones of the same grade wouldn't exceed 20 times. As for surpass grade soul stones, he only needed 3. Soul beasts advancing was just so simple. As long as one had enough money and was able to control it, then it was really easy to raise its grade. However, this time, the broken mountain bear's soul stones that he obtained from the beast tomb had over 100 grade 6 soul stones. There were even 2 grade 7 soul stones. Naturally, he had to strive for perfection. The lowest goal was for it to awaken its consciousness once more. Zhong Shou, What you ate just now was the ice soul intent pill? The one who asked was Zhao Yanran. As she said that, she looked beside Zhong Shou. A pill bottle was placed on the table. Zhong Shou would consume one every 15 minutes. Before this, Zhao Yanran didn't pay much attention to it until she noticed that the color and fragrance of the pill was similar to the famous pill from Pill Fountain sect. Only then did she pay attention to it. At this moment, Zhong Shou felt his chest and abdomen turn cold. This was one of the side effects of the Ice Soul Intent pill. However, along with the lightning glow exploding, the coldness disappeared and turned into a comfortable warmth. When he heard that, he raised his head in shock. You recognize this pill? Zhao Yanran's heart instantly tightened. As expected, it was this pill. This was a grade 3 Ice Soul Intent pill whose effects could be compared to grade 4. It was really famous in the cloud world. As long as one was a cultivator, who wouldn't recognize it? Looking at the situation, it was of exceptional quality. Just now, Zhong Shou would consume one every 30 minutes, eating it like it was a sugar pill. It was simply a waste of this supreme grade spirit pill. Zhong Shou took the pill bottle and waved it in front of her. You want to eat? Zhao Yanran was instantly tempted. Even Xian Yunlan's brows rose up. Such a grade of pill, just one could benefit one greatly. Who wouldn't want it? In the next instance, Zhong Shou laughed, keeping the pill bottle and tossing it to Ruoshui. This thing is really expensive. If I give it to you just like that, Iran would scold me. It is better if I use something to exchange for it. Shui, open your mouth. This thing is really delicious. Chu Shui opened her mouth in shock, following which an ice blue pill was tossed into her mouth. As expected, it was really sweet. She couldn't help but look towards Ruoshui greedily. Ruoshui broke out into a laugh, pinching Chu Shui's nose. Without enough cultivation, one couldn't eat too much. The corner of Zhao Yanran's eyes twitched. She felt that this Zhong Shou was asking for a beating. She was also envious. This fellow was really lucky. Looking at this Ice Soul Intent pill, the fire in it still hadn't subsided. It was obviously made recently and the materials were most probably taken from the beast tomb. It was most probably made by Xianyuan Iran. His fiancée was a top pill master and he wouldn't need to worry about pills in the future. Unfortunately, she wasn't a guy, if not she would snatch it. After teasing Zhao Yanran for a while, Zhong Shou retracted his thoughts, picking up a talisman pen and starting to draw talismans on the soul stones. Just as he was slowly focusing, his brows furrowed as he looked into the distance. Only to see 100,000 feet away, a few ships were sailing over from the thick fog. Samuraim's eyes instantly squinted, thinking to himself that was Yu Guanyun and the others counterattacking? Their speed was really quick. Not long later, numerous cloud ships appeared in front of his eyes. They gave off a huge aura. However, looking out, there were close to 6,000 to 7,000 of them. The ships were mostly broken, who knows where they got the materials from, sewing and patching them up. They looked really weird, making one wonder whether or not they would instantly collapse in the next moment. The warriors on the ships were the same. There were all sorts of armor and weapons, but each of them gave off a strong aura. These are the Wind Bandits. Zhong Shou relaxed slightly. It wasn't that there were no humans living in the cloud ocean. They were all sinners who were chased down by the dynasties. They were able to survive in such a dangerous environment. They were all called sinners. Some people even formed groups and plundered fleets under the sea of clouds. They entered and exited the black fog, sometimes charging up to the cloud ocean to snatch resources. They came with the wind and used the wind to leave. They were really unpredictable, which was why they were called the Wind Bandit. However, these people weren't within the agreement that the sects couldn't kill one another. Shaking his head slightly, Zhong Shou gave Gu Laikong a hand signal that he didn't need to show mercy. The latter understood. Moments later, thousands of ships formed up in an orderly manner. Just as those spaceships were charging over in a disorderly formation, the spaceships were charging over. Those 800 energy-destroying crossbows shot out once more. The entire space was lit up by the white light such that one could see everything clearly. A moment later, nearly 600 of the 7,000-plus cloud ships exploded and fell from the sky. The entire battlefield was instantly deathly silent. Following which, those wind bandit ships were in chaos as they crazily fled in all directions. It should be a coincidence. If they knew that you had 800 energy-destroying crossbows, they would have fled as far as they could. That Yu Guanyun and Xiongba wouldn't have done such a useless thing. Zhao Yanran's tone turned into a mocking one. Do you need to be so nervous about some random people? Why do you need to use the energy-destroying crossbows? What is even weirder is that the commander is merciless, but he actually has compassion in his heart. Zhongshu laughed and was too lazy to bother. Following which, from the corner of his eyes, he saw tens of ships. The people on them all had snow-white hair, their bodies were muscular and strong, even stronger than the Iron Tiger race. That is the Snow Lion race of the Lion race? Zhongshu's brows furrowed as he recalled something in his memory. He couldn't help but stand up, chase them. It is best if they don't notice. Gu Laikong in the distance was startled and didn't understand. 1,000 cloud ships, to hide their tracks wasn't easy. However, he still sent the order down. Just as all the wind bandit ships were far away, the entire fleet suddenly changed directions. Ling Feikong and Zhong Ling instantly did something. Balls of black mist started to spread out, covering the entire fleet within. The Snow Lion race ships in front seemed to be fleeing in panic. They didn't pay attention to what was behind them, directly drilling into a mountain range. After a short moment, a city, that was several thousand feet tall and built on top of a mountain, appeared before everyone's eyes. Chapter 309. The place in front of him couldn't be considered a city, it was more appropriate to call it a nest. On top of the steep cliff, there were numerous man-made caves that extended in all directions. Moreover, they were made of extremely tough magi stone. Who knows how much effort the people within had spent? Most of the people inside were naked, with their chests bared. They only wore beast skins to cover their vitals. There weren't many people within, roughly 500,000. However, they were all tall and strong. Even the shortest person was 8 feet tall. Their silver-white fur was draped behind their backs. Their auras were both noble and rough. However, their situation wasn't good. They didn't care about their appearance. Most of them were covered in dirt. When Zhongshu's 1,000 cloud ships finally passed through the black mist, they appeared beside the giant mountain. The Snow Lion race people in the cave panicked as they all hid into the depths of the cave. It really is the Snow Lion race. The 3 king races of the lion race in the past. Chu Shui was slightly shocked. She stood up in confusion and looked at the caves. Young master, didn't they say that the Snow Lion race was already wiped out? Why would there be so many people under the cloud ocean? Her eyes were filled with anticipation and surprise. Their tiger cat race actually had the bloodline of the Snow Lion race. Roughly 3,000 years ago, they had a marriage alliance with the Snow Lion race. They could be considered close relatives. Zhongshu knew a little about the reason. In the past, the monster race was forced by the human race such that they had nowhere to go and were forced to fight back. There were some that succeeded and some that failed. In the past, the 10 races of the lion race were strong for a period of time in Donglin Cloud Continent. However, as they killed too many people, the human race retaliated. Many powers joined hands and they faced the rise of the strongest dynasty in Donglin. The entire race was close to collapsing. This Snow Lion race probably chose to hide under the cloud ocean at that time, which was why they were able to survive. As for the details, Zhongshu was too lazy to think about it. He only needed to know that this was the Snow Lion race that had an unparalleled general in his memory. In less than 10 years, an empire that stretched tens of thousands of miles would appear under the cloud ocean. He had united the tens of millions of sinners under his command, using tens of thousands of broken ships to fight against the beasts and evil spirits while also fighting against the cloud ships of Donglin Cloud Continent. In just over 20 years, his influence had expanded tenfold. If it weren't for the fact that the various sects could no longer tolerate the expansion of the sinners' forces under the Sea of Clouds, they wouldn't have been able to do so. Perhaps one day, this empire would be able to unify the entire world under the Cloud Sea. Speaking of which, he had once viewed this person as a target to climb up to. Due to his good friend's request, when he was mixed into the battle formation, he had studied this person's methods of using troops. It was a pity that this person's life was mostly spent in warship battles, and he was not good at such things. He had wanted to find this person a long time ago. However, Zhong Shou had no idea where the Snow Lion tribe was hiding. As for the exact location, the company that developed the Godly Emperor game back then did not manage to find any clues in the vast history book. The original residence of the Snow Lion tribe was only a fictional residence in the game. Since Zhong Shou returned to Gantian Mountain, he didn't have a single day of free time. As time passed, he totally forgot about it. Who knew that he would bump into them here? Was this the will of the heavens? His eyes flashing slightly, Zhong Shou's face regained its calmness. Governor Gu, think of a way to force them to surrender. I want all of them. Gu Laikong frowned slightly, thinking to himself that Zhong Shou was going to do slave trading. However, the lion race was arrogant and definitely wouldn't be willing to be slaves. To these lion race people, if they were humiliated like that, they would rather die. To make them surrender was easy, but to make them listen to orders wasn't. Those slave merchants in Donglin Cloud Continent rarely did business with the lion race. Even if they did, it was really cheap. However, if they had methods to control them, the price would be sky high. On one hand, there were really few lion race people in Donglin Cloud Continent. On the other hand, they were really hard to tame. However, he didn't say much, spreading out the order flag. Thousands of cloud shuttles lined up in a row, and countless crossbows were aimed in the direction of the stone caves. The entire process was really simple and didn't require much effort. When those 800 energy-destroying crossbows fired at the same time towards the caves, power slightly spread out, causing this giant mountain to nearly collapse. After an hour of warning, the Snow Lion race had already surrendered. It wasn't that they had lost their vital energy, but that this enemy was so strong that he didn't even need to attack to kill them all. When resistance was meaningless, they lost all their fighting spirit. The Snow Lion race originally had 1,000 ships, all of which were destroyed by the Donglin Cloud Ocean over the years. The Snow Lion race picked them up and modified them. They used close to 8 hours to load the hundreds of thousands of Snow Lion race people onto the ship. Following which, Zhu Junho and Zhong Yuan led their teams to search the cave. As expected, they found many. Their population was close to 570,000, as expected from a huge race that was once prosperous in Donglin Cloud Continent. Even thousands of years later, their population was only tens of thousands less than their Skyfox Zhong family. Just as all the cloud ships set off once more, a close to 10 feet tall middle-aged man, whose body was ridiculously muscular even within the lion race, was forcefully escorted onto Zhong Shou's ship by Zhong Yuan. His entire body was tied up by wrist-thick chains, however, they gave out cracking sounds. It made one suspect whether or not the chains would be forcefully broken by this person in the next moment. Behind this person, there were tens of people. Their bodies were also muscular, only weaker than the bear race. However, their strength was slightly weaker. As expected, there were a few females within. The lion race people, the males were muscular, while the females had normal bodies. Compared to normal females, they were slightly taller and had hot bodies. You are their leader? Although that silver-haired middle-aged man looked overbearing and arrogant. However, when he boarded the ship, his aura was unusually calm. His golden eyes swept the people on the ship. In the end, when he noticed that the noblest person here was actually Zhong Shou, who was sitting under a large umbrella, he was slightly shocked. Since when did the demon clan degenerate? A kid who doesn't even have much strength can become a leader? Zhong Yuan's eyes turned cold, his expression didn't change. However, the hand holding the chains tightened. That silver-haired middle-aged man's expression changed, cold sweat dripping down his forehead. Chiu was still really firm, gritting his teeth and saying, "Today you won with an unfair advantage. However, I, Sir Fatian, know the way of war, the way of unscrupulous means. No matter what your intentions are, I only beg you to give our snow lion race a way out and some face. Even if I, Sir Fatian, become your slave or slave, I am willing to do anything for you." Zhong Shou didn't even bother to listen, only staring at those few lion race girls. Moments later, he found out that the image of that person in the God Emperor game was probably made up by the game developers. None of the girls in front of him looked like that person. Actually, thinking about it, one could understand that since the game developers didn't know the exact location of the snow lion race before the spiritual wave started. As for what that person looked like, naturally they wouldn't know. In his heart, he couldn't help but feel disappointed. Zhong Shou turned around and asked, "You are Shurfatian? Snow Lion race leader? Then, who is your fourth girl?" He had no choice, this was the only piece of reliable information. That Shurfatian frowned, hesitating slightly. Moments later, when Zhong Yuan increased his strength once more, he knew that he couldn't reject. He scoffed coldly, "The third one on the left." Samuraim's gaze shifted over, following which he was totally startled. Where his eyes landed was a small body. It wasn't because she was young, only 10 years old, but because her body was really small, similar to a 7 to 8-year-old normal person. Compared to those tall brothers and sisters beside her, she was pretty much just a little duck. Her face was smeared with mud, a pair of watery eyes looking over timidly. In the blink of an eye, the tall, slender, and beautiful figure in his memory completely collapsed. Zhong Shou also suddenly understood why the descriptions of this person in the history books were so weird. Used a ghost face to show people, body different from normal people. As expected, she was different from normal people. Her body, even amongst normal people, could only be considered petite. Zhong Shou walked over in large steps and hugged this little girl. Then, he used his sleeves to wipe away the black mud on her face. Then, he broke out into a laugh. Such a beautiful face, no wonder she had to wear a mask in the future. However, in his mind, he still didn't dare to believe it. That 10 years later, she helped her brother in the first battle, using 300 broken cloud ships to cause Taoyuan City to suffer heavy losses. She then led the sinners in 300 battles, be it on land or on ships, she never lost. In the end, she was feared by her brother and could only go into seclusion. She also fell along with this empire under the cloud ocean. The person who was called unparalleled by the entire cloud world was this little dot in front of him? In that instant, Zhong Shou was about to suspect that the history books he had read weren't reliable. However, shortly after, Zhong Shou had an idea and took out a talisman. It burned in mid-air and a spiritual light entered the girl's brow, forming a chess-shaped talisman. He took out the illusionary heart mirror and shone it into her soul. However, 15 minutes later, the chess talisman at the center of her brow suddenly broke. The light of the illusionary heart mirror dimmed slightly. Then, those eyes that made one love her looked over with a wronged expression. Zhong Shoxin was totally stunned. Just now, he used the illusionary heart mirror to form an illusionary realm in her heart. After all, she was still a kid and couldn't create something too perverted. It was just a set of chess that was really popular in the future. However, the final result was unexpected. After being startled for a moment, Zhong Shou smiled. Does this girl have a name? Fatian felt more and more weird, but he had no choice but to reply. Our Snow Lion race girls can only be named after 14 years old. Then I will help her name, Rulin. What do you think? Although he was asking, he didn't have any intention of asking. However, when Zhong Shou raised his head felt numb. He saw that Chu Shui, Rua Shui, and the others were looking over with weird expressions. Chapter 310. There weren't any more waves on the way back. However, along the way, Zhong Shou felt really awkward for the next few days. Being looked at with disdain by the few girls, Zhong Shou followed the rules for the next few days. Only then did the surrounding scenery slowly return to normal. However, a few days later, Xianyuan Iren walked out of the pill room and learned about the situation. Right away, she pinched the soft meat on Zhong Shou's waist and pulled. In the end, she said sadly, "So little Shou likes the younger ones. No wonder when we were in Cloud Saint City, even if I offered myself, little Shou wasn't willing to take me." Zhong Shou was speechless. Even if he jumped into the Dragon River, he wouldn't be able to wash himself clean. The Dragon River was a huge river in the central Cloud continent. It was a turbid yellow all year round. If one jumped in, they would only be dirtier and wouldn't be able to wash themselves clean. However, towards Rulin, all of them were very fond of her. Especially Chu Shui, who treated Rulin like a doll, hugging her in her arms and not letting go. However, who knows if this little girl was afraid of strangers or if she was introverted, but she didn't speak much. When she did, her voice made one feel really comfortable. Out of all the girls, only Zhao Yanran had a different expression. However, when the fleet was about to reach the Cloud Ocean Whirlpool ladder, she couldn't help but ask, "I see that you treat this Rulin a little differently. However, it is different from the feelings between men and women. Especially since the first time you met and used the illusionary heart mirror, your emotions fluctuated the most intensely. I have seen her talents, be it spiritual cultivation or martial path, she is just above average. I really don't know what is so special about this Rulin to make you pay so much attention to her?" Zhong Shou smiled and didn't explain. He took out a piece of beast bone from his heaven and earth bag and started to carve it. 15 minutes later, a weird-looking chess board appeared in front of the two of them. Zhao Yanran's brow furrowed and then she understood. This is military chess? I've never seen it before. Could it be that it was this set of chess that day in the illusion? What else could it be? Zhong Shou shook his head slightly. He then picked up dozens of chess pieces that symbolized various types of troops and placed them on the chessboard. He said indifferently, "Play a few rounds with me." The rules were simple. The chess pieces that represented cavalry, infantry, and archers were marked with their movement speed, damage, and even their health bars. Between each round there were a few dice. On them there were not numbers of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 but lines of text. How strong was the wind? Was there a rainstorm? It didn't take long for Zhao Yanran to master it, but she was defeated several times in a row. In the end, he said helplessly, "I'm not playing anymore. You're just bullying me." Suddenly, a thought flashed through his mind. Could it be that Rulin defeated you in the illusion? What? Her grades are even worse than yours. She's just a little girl. No matter how intelligent she is, how could she possibly defeat me? Zhong Shou still shook his head. Following which, under Zhao Yanran's confused gaze, he waved at Zhong Yuan. When Zhong Yuan walked close, Zhong Shou smiled and asked, "If it was you and you weren't defeated in a few rounds, what would you do?" Zhong Yuan thought about it seriously. Following which, he took out the sword at his waist and directly smashed the chessboard into pieces. Zhong Shou seemed to have expected that. He smiled and asked, "Why?" "If the ruler is just having fun and killing time, Zhong Yuan will naturally accompany you. But if you want to test me—" As he said that, a cold glow flashed in Zhong Yuan's eyes. "Then Zhong Yuan won't follow other people's rules and won't be limited by them." Zhong Shou instantly laughed out loud in satisfaction. As expected from the unparalleled general talent that he had taught. On the side, Zhao Yinran's gaze changed. "So this sure Rulin was like that in the illusion?" Zhong Shou nodded slightly. "The first round wasn't over and the outcome wasn't decided. This little brat directly flipped the chessboard. If that was the case, it would be okay. It would only mean that this girl was really competitive and wasn't willing to accept defeat. However, after that, my illusion started to collapse. Which was why I knew that she wasn't aiming at the outcome of the chess game, but at the rules of the illusion. This little fellow's spiritual cultivation talent is probably even better than mine. In the future, her military path might not be weaker than Zhong Yuan's." When he heard that, Zhong Yuan was astonished. He looked at the lion race girl who was quietly lying in the arms of Chu Shui. Zhao Yinran was the same, her eyes were stunned. Her spiritual cultivation talent was better than Zhong Shou's, her military path wasn't weaker than Zhong Yuan's. She didn't expect that Zhong Shou's evaluation of this little girl would be so high. Wasn't he expecting this girl to be an unparalleled general in the future? Just as she was about to ask more, Zhong Shou suddenly stood up and looked into the distance. "We're here." Tens of miles out, the black mist finally disappeared without a trace. A giant cloud whirlpool appeared in front of everyone's eyes. Following the cloud ocean whirlpool ladder up, it was similarly calm and uneventful. This place was close to Psychic Island and no one dared to kill or do anything here. 2 hours later, the entire fleet finally arrived at Psychic Island. All the cloud ships in the fleet cheered out, rising and falling, not stopping for a long time. 1,000 warships, 700,000 soldiers went out. However, it was a complete and rewarding journey. Out of all the countless cloud hunts he had gone through, this was the most dangerous, but also the safest. The people on Psychic Island seemed to have gotten the news long ago. When the fleet appeared, the entire island was in an uproar. Numerous people headed towards the pier. The one standing at the front of the crowd was Long Ru. However, his expression was neither happy nor angry, such that one couldn't see his true thoughts. Behind them were the various sects of the Cloud World, who stayed on Psychic Island to manage various businesses. Their eyes were all filled with smiles, filled with anticipation. Samuraim looked around, until he saw 60 to 70 broken cloud ships, docked not far away. Only then did he retract his gaze, scoffing coldly in his heart. It seems like after the 3 cities of Taoyuan escaped, they still suffered huge losses. Rushing before them and returning in advance, he wondered what kind of tricks were waiting for him. However, when they got off the ship, Long Ru surprisingly didn't say anything to scold them. He just expressionlessly congratulated them and gave a few glances to Jing Taozhenren. The group of them left on their own accord. The people from the various sects behind gave Zhong Shou a headache. They all came to purchase Beast Corp's soul stones. The amount wasn't small and he couldn't offend them. With Zhong Shou's casual personality, he could only accompany them. Only until this night did he deal with half of the matters and send all the people away. He knew that most of these people didn't lack mind stones and beast crystals. On the contrary, the complete beast corpses dug out from the beast tombs were rare resources. This was why no matter what they said, there was no discount. Instead, the price was 50% higher than the market price. Talking to them was giving face to the sects behind them. When the spiritual wave was about to rise, these materials that could greatly increase the strength of the sects would be fought for. Such a large amount might not be available in the next few years. As for whether or not to buy, that was up to them. Until nighttime, on those 1,800 cloud ships, apart from a portion which Zhong Shou kept for his own use, the rest were sold at high prices. The number of beast crystals they obtained far exceeded everyone's expectations. In terms of grade 4 beast crystals, the total number was as high as 30 million. This didn't include the items in the 3 heaven and earth bags of Zhong Shou and Xianyuan Iran. The rewards were given out on the spot. The shares given to the subordinate cities were also given. Gantian Mountain took 55%. In terms of effort, naturally Gantian Mountain City and Zhong Shou did the most. Forcing back the beast wave was mostly due to the 800 energy-destroying crossbows. Xian Mountain City also took 25%. The last 20% was split by the various cities. However, all the subordinate city lords were beaming with joy. This ratio had already far exceeded their imagination. With such huge gains, even if they didn't hunt under the cloud ocean for tens of years, it was enough to support them. Zhong Shou shook his head. 30 million grade 4 beast crystals flowed into the market. The few provinces west of Donglin Cloud Continent couldn't be digested in a short time. The outcome would only be inflation. It seemed like these beast crystals would greatly depreciate. It was better for him to store more materials. Even if he wanted to trade, it was best to barter. However, such huge wealth was no less than what he earned in Jiefu City. Naturally, he didn't dare to bring it with him, directly depositing it into the bank opened by Wujua Villa and Taiyuan sect. In the end, only Kongqi sect's Qiaohan didn't leave. 20 days had passed since they last met. The clothing on his body changed once more. His face was red and filled with joy. It was obvious that he was promoted to deacon once more. However, at this moment he acted bitter. If I knew that your highness bought the energy-destroying crossbows to plot against Taoyuan City, no matter what I wouldn't sell them to your highness. Zhong Shou didn't know what he meant. In terms of business, the 3 million grade 4 beast crystals order had been settled long ago. He also gave a huge discount. Between the two of them, there wasn't much to talk about. However, he didn't show it on his face filled with worry. Why does Deacon Xiaohan say that? I have already explained this matter, it was purely an accident. At that time, I didn't know that there were 4,000 cloud ships outside of the canyon. When I found out, it was already too late. As for what the situation was, Your Highness, I know. My Kongqi sect has no intentions to pursue the matter. Xiaohan shook his head. He knew how good Zhong Shou was at scamming people and wouldn't fall for it once more. Does Your Highness know? I have been appointed by the sect to stay in Gantian Mountain? Zhong Shou was startled. Then, he heard Xiaohan sigh and explain, Your Highness caused Gantian Mountain to recover in just a few months. After you return, the west of Donglin Cloud Continent will change. Your Highness already has the ability to make my sect do that. Zhong Shou laughed involuntarily and was about to speak. Only to see Zhong Yuan walk over. Taoyuan City Envoy Lin Ji requests to meet you. His voice was firm and powerful. Zhong Shou's brows furrowed slightly. This was another familiar person. However, 20 days ago, he was threatened by this person. Time had already passed. Who knows why this person came? You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.